Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone joining us from around the world. Just a technical remark. So to listen to the interpretation, you have to click the globe icon labeled interpretation. You have to go to the more and then select interpretation and choose your preferred language. So, greetings from the UNGJM Secretariat here in New York. My name is Aygirim Musayeva, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar titled Unlocking FELA. This webinar is part of a series of virtual side events leading up to the 15th session of the UNGGIM, which will be held first week of August 2025 at UN headquarters in New York, just a few weeks away. And before we dive into the main part, I would like to take a moment to honor the memory of Mr. Frank Tierolf, a dear colleague and one of key figures in the UNGGM community. Frank's deep commitment to land governance and international cooperation helped shape this framework and many other initiatives under UNGGM. His legacy continues through the work we carry forward today, and we remember him with gratitude. Our session is organized around three key themes. First, we'll start with FELA and land administration, where speakers will reflect on their origins, value, and the direction of the framework. Then we'll move to the tools and technology for land administration, showcasing innovation and approaches to support the implementation. And finally, we'll hear from countries in the implementation experiences segment, where colleagues will share how they are applying FELA in practice on the ground. After the presentation, we'll conclude with the next step segment and finalize with closing remarks. And now I would like to give a short overview on the background of UNGJM. The Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management is a subsidiary body of the UN Economic and Social Council and serves as the global intergovernmental platform on geospatial information. It brings together member states, international organizations, and partners to coordinate geospatial efforts and promote integrated approaches. The Committee of Experts is led by a bureau of 3 co-chairs and 5 regional chairs from the Arab states, Americas, Africa, Asia Pacific, and Europe. The committee is also supported by thematic networks with academia, societies, private sector, and the UN system. The program of work of the Committee of Experts includes operations focused on the Sustainable Development Goals through the implementation of its main framework, known as UNIGF, UN Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, and also coordination for member states and relevant international organizations, and also development of framework, norms, principles, and guides, promotion of dialogue and global forums, coordination and the coherence through the expert consultations and meetings. Alongside global development agendas, the Committee of Experts has developed key geospatial frameworks to support country-level implementations. On this slide, global agendas are shown on the left and the Committee's geospatial frameworks on the right. One of the key frameworks is the Framework for Effective Land Administration, also now known as FELA. FELA builds on the UNIGF by guiding countries in developing inclusive, fit-for-purpose land administration systems aligned with national priorities and the Sustainable Development Goals. FELA also connects land data with marine, urban, and statistical domains, fostering an integrated geospatial system. And the development and promotion of FELA is led by UNGGIM Expert Group on Land Administration and Management, also known as EGLAM, supporting implementation and adaptation in countries. Thank you very much. It's my very short end of my very short presentation. And before introducing our next speaker, I would like to use this moment and make a small special announcement. As of this year, Mr. Victor Koo, former co-chair of UNGGIM Expert Group on Land Administration and Management from Singapore, has stepped down his role. And we express our deep gratitude for his tremendous leadership, vision, commitment in advancing effective land administration worldwide. So at the same time, I would like to introduce and very pleased to welcome Ms. Paula Dijkstra as the new co-chair of EGLAM, joining Ms. Rafaela Anillo of Chile, who continues her role as co-chair. Paula is the director of Cadastre International and EGLAM member. She has been responsible for the international projects in the Central and Eastern European regions and joint projects of Cadastre, and also Global Land Tool Network. So on behalf of the Secretariat and the UNGGM community, I would like to extend our warmest congratulations and support. And with that, it's my pleasure to invite Ms. Paula Dijkstra. Paula, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aygrim, for the words of introduction and also introducing me. And it's an honor and pleasure also to take over from Victor and to work together with you and with Rafaela in the time ahead. But for most important thing now, I also want to thank you for the momentum to remember Frank. He was our chair of the executive board of the Netherlands Cadastre Land Registry Mapping Agency. He was my boss, and it's still hard to grasp that he's no longer there. And he will be missed. It is an enormous loss for his family, but also at Cadastre and in the international community, he will be missed enormously through his vision, but also as a person. And I would like to express also the gratitude to the international community. For the last weeks, we have received many messages from all over the world with condolence letters and also memories to commemorate Frank. And we will make sure that these messages also reach his family so that they can also get a good understanding on how he will be missed and how they saw how Frank contributed to our community. And for those who know Frank, know that land administration was a topic close to his heart. He saw where he could make a difference with his role and position, but also with his drive and vision where a change could be made. And he motivated a lot of people and has put also things in motions, including the efforts to put land administration higher on the agenda within UNGGIM. So this is really something that, I'm eager to continue in this journey, and I hope to do that with you, with the land community. Let's make sure his drive and motivation will not be forgotten. For today's meeting, it's an important meeting on the road to the 15th session, like Arjun already indicated, and having an online session with translation really makes it inclusive, and I'm really proud that this was made available, and it really also allows more people to attend this meeting. Compliments also to the organizers for putting all of this together. Thanks also for the translation for making this available and making it a more inclusive event. We're with this event and gathering all the different perspectives on effective land administration, we're really paving the way for a more sustainable future. Earlier this week, as you might know, the new SDG report, progress report, was launched. So we are in 2025, so 5 years to go to the 2030 and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. As you know, we are not really on track, but there is progress to report. And I was actually quite pleased to read this year's progress report because it contains valuable data about tenure security, about land rights, especially the SDGs 1 with indicator 1.4.2 and SDG 5, which is really about women, and also women's land rights, SDG 5.A.1 and 5.A.2. It really shows where the challenges are. So it's good to see that many people perceive tenure security, but if you talk about documentation, that's where the real challenge is. And it's even a worse situation for women than for men. And effective land administration can contribute to that, can play a transformative role to addressing the challenges and creating more inclusive and sustainable and transparent systems that are also legally robust. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of the experiences and developments from all over the world and different perspectives during this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula, for your warm and welcoming speech. Indeed, the work of the EGLAM continues to evolve with strong leadership and broad regional engagement. So we are now pleased to hear from Ms. Rafaela Anilio, co-chair of EGLAM. Currently, she serves as subnational coordinator for Chile's national spatial data infrastructure, where she leads with guidance, tools, and experience to support the development of local SDI at various levels of government. Rafaela, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Ajerim, por esa introducción.
Thank you, Aldrin, for that introduction, and Paula for her words as well. I join in the remarks about Mr. Frank Jirov, and I trust that we could progress in the thematics those that he advocated for. I join the thanks in regards to his work, Victor, as co-chair, and I'm very happy as well to know that Paula, who has always shown so much dedication and interest in supporting the expert groups, now could co-lead this group. For many years, as co-chair in the experts groups, we've identified the need to organize this webinar due to the importance for higher visibility of the main work of this working group, which is the FELA framework. We've seen that even though there's efforts been made in implementation at the global and local level, it's fundamental to continue spreading this guideline so that the countries understand its potential and the impact that it can have in land administration, especially in those institutions that are responsible for cadastre and land data. In this regard, the presentations that we've organized for this webinar seek to offer an integrated vision from the members of the experts groups, organizations, and the countries that make efforts in improving land administration global and local level. So we hope that this is the first out of many webinars that allow to reach the global community through virtual meetings and letting know about what's being done in this framework at the global level. We also especially thank GGIM Americas and the working group about land administration, GGIM Americas, who facilitated the translation service, allowing so that this knowledge reaches the highest audience as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafaela, and thank you for your ongoing leadership in this important area of work. Now we move into the next segment of today's webinar, where we'll explore land administration framework in more depth. This part of the session will be moderated by Mr. Denis Aguilar. I hope I pronounced correct, from Honduras, coordinator of the Working Group for Effective Land Administration at UNGGM Americas. Denise, over to you.
Sí, bien, muchas gracias, Aigerim, por su
Thank you, Adrian,
pronunciaste bien
of course, you
mi nombre.
pronounce
Es
my
un
name
gusto,
fine.
encantado de estar con
So
todos
it's a
ustedes
pleasure.
aquí. Voy a
I'm
estar
happy to be
moderando
with you. I
este
will be
segmento, el
moderating
cual
this
pues se encarga de
segment
conocer un poco más lo que es el marco
to let
FELA. Sin embargo, antes de dar
everybody know
inicio
about the
con
FELA
este
framework.
apartado,
Before
me
we
gustaría
begin,
de que
I'd
puedan
like
escanear el código QR,
for
el
you
cual va
to
a
please scan the
encargarse
QR code
pues
that
de
will
almacenar cualquier tipo
store
de comentario que ustedes
any
tengan con la
comments
presentación. Estaremos
about the
contando con
presentation.
un tiempo de 10
We
minutos
will
por
have 10
ponente, el cual
minutes
tendremos
for
a 3
speaker,
personas expertas en esta
where we have
temática.
3 experts
Pues
in
como
this
objetivo
topic.
lo que se
So
tiene
as a
es
goal that
conocer
what we have is to
acerca
let
de el FELA, que es
everyone
el
know
marco para la
about
administración
FELA, which is the
efectiva de la
framework
tierra,
for effective
cuáles han
land
sido los
administration,
progresos al día de hoy. Y
the
para
progress
esto
for
pues
today.
vamos a empezar
And for this,
escuchando
we will
a Eva
start
María Unger,
listening
quien
to
es
Eva
nuestra
Maria
primera
Ungar,
experta en
who
esta
is our first
temática.
expert in
Ella
this
es
topic.
pues asesora principal en
She is
administración de
main
tierras en
advocate
catastro internacional,
for
cuenta con
international
más de
cadastre,
14 años de
has more than
experiencia
14 years of
internacional en alrededor
international
de 20
experience
países, centrada en
in
temas de
20
catastro,
countries
geodesia,
in cadastre
cartografía,
topics,
normas y desarrollo de capacidades.
norms and
Ella es
capacity
máster en
building.
geodesia y geoinformación, además doctor en administración de tierras y ha
Doctor in
colaborado
land
con organismos
administration
como
has
la Organización de
collaborated
las
with
Naciones
organisms like
Unidas,
the
el Banco
Organization
Mundial, la
of
FAO, el Open
United
Geospatial
Nations,
Consortium
FAO,
y ella actualmente pues dirige la
World Bank,
Oficina
and now
Internacional de
currently
Catastro y
leads
Régimen
the
de la Propiedad
International
y además
Cadastre Office
preside el Consejo
and
Asesor del
is
Modelo de
president
Gobierno
of
de Tenencia
the
Social de un
Council
hábitat.
of
Sin embargo, pues no está de
Social
más de decirlo
Tenants.
que Eva es una persona experta en esta
She's
temática
an
y
expert in
estaremos
this topic, and
encantados
we
de
will
escucharte,
love
Eva.
to
Tienes
hear
10
from you,
minutos
Eva. You
para
have 10
que puedas
minutes
presentarnos tu
so that you can
ponencia.
present
Gracias,
your
Eva.
presentation.
Adelante.
Thank you, Eva. Go ahead.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you very much. It's always strange that somebody else is introducing themselves. Very nice, mate. Let me also try to focus on this presentation on the FELA, which is very close to my heart. Can I click the slides? No. I guess no. Then we just go next. I think this slide was already shown by Aigerim, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think it's always good. I like the overview, also what GGIM was about, like in the first 5 years, for example, and then in the second 5 years with first initiated establishment and institutionalization. And now it's really about this implementation. It's not just about the implementation of the IGIF, because related to this is also the implementation of the FELA. And I think that just shows also, Rafaela, thanks for this initiative, that the time of the webinar is really on time, because this is what we are focusing on. We can move on to the next slide. A little bit stepping back of the development of the FELA, because I think it's always relevant. And I tried to make time, Rafaela, I promise. The Addis Ababa Declaration, that was really the key why the framework for effective land administration was focused on, because there it clearly said, like, there is first of all a relation between geospatial information and land administration, but also there is the need to work on effective land administration. And then the expert group was meeting in 2017 at Delft. The co-chair was then with Kees de Zu. And that was the starting point of the development of FELA. So the expert group, we were sitting down in the room in the University of Delft and discussing on what should be there and who of organizations and also member states, and like all the UNGGM member states should be there, and how we can make sure that this is a United Nations framework. In 2022, it was then adopted, and we can move on to the next slide. And basically, because we are now 2025, so it's really time. And I think, Paula, you also made the point really clear. SDG reporting, 2030 agenda, we have to deliver as best as we can do. We can move on to the next slide. What is very unique about the FELA is that we worked on this graphic, for example, where we put the 2030 agenda with its 5 Ps, put it together with effective land administration. And you can really see how land administration is touching upon each of those 5 Ps. And if we move to the next slide, it is about saying, where are we now? And Paula mentioned the SDG progress report, which we can move on to the next slide, where I tried this graphic to represent on, okay, what are we talking about? What are the numbers that are known at the moment? And there you can really see that it's not just about the people, because this is where the SDGs, also the indicators are, but it's also really about like the planet and also the partnership, but it's about the reporting of the SDGs. So we have to touch upon all the 5 Ps. And I think also in times like this, for example, we realize also how important the P of peace, for example, also is, because there are a lot of land-related conflicts. We can move on to the next slide. And I think this is very unique, where the FELA says sustainable development supports effective land administration, but also sustainable development demands effective land administration. And that's the key about the FELA. It is an umbrella framework, and every country, every member state of the United Nations has to translate it into their own context. So what does it mean in their own context? I think I should be able now to no, but it doesn't work. Sorry, Rafaela. Please, we can move on to the next slide. Okay. Because in the overview graphic you saw the IGIF and the FELA. So I just wanted to present here like what is the timeline, for example, on when they were established. We are talking about IGF in 2018 was adopted, the overarching framework, and then the implementation guide basically in 2020. Same time, the FELA was then adopted at the 10th session. Key is here that FELA has a slightly different naming in 2 of the pathways. So the first of the pathway, for example, is governance, institutions, and accountability. And I think this is very key to remember, because we had a meeting in Beijing as the expert group on land administration, and there we said, corruption is a big thing, and we don't want to talk about it, of course, but it is a thing when we are talking about land. And this is why the expert group decided on, we want to have accountability in the pathways. The other one is in the 9th pathway. It is named here advocacy and awareness, whereas in IGIF it's called communication and engagement. The reason behind this was also because advocacy is the key of land. Land should enable the people to have power over their land, power over decisions that they want to make in connection to the land. So you see a little bit, there is the difference, and we can move on to the next slide, please. And move on to the next one, because there were always many discussions. What is the difference? So IGIF, and this is the statement of the expert group. So IGIF is an umbrella framework, and when you work with the IGIF and entering the domain of land administration, you can work then with the FELA because it's part of the puzzle. When implementing the IGIF at the country level, then FELA is preferred when we have to address land and property rights. Why is that so? Because within FELA we have specific approaches or guidelines also referenced, like for example from the FAO, the VGGTs, that are immediately related to land. And I think this is the key. And there are also the requirements and the goals, they are related to in the perspective of land. So that's why the recommendation, the overall recommendation is when you work on land, then please also have a look at the FELA. Next slide, please. So this is a question that I posed in the most recent FELA workshop that we had in Paris. It was how do you say that now? Sorry, my English is gone. It was organized by EuroSTR. And I just posed this question because I think it is a relevant question that also we as the expert group need to ask ourselves more often. Like, why is IGF talked about, applied, promoted often, which is a very, very good thing. But why, when we are talking about land, is FELA less mentioned? Is it because it's obsolete? In Paris, we generally agreed that no, that this is not, of course. Probably it is because it's less known. So again, there, Rafaela, thanks for this initiative. I think we have now around 100 participants. So I think at least from today on, 100 more people know about the FELA. We can move on to the next slide, please. And this is a question, the previous one. Because FELA was basically adopted in 2020 and we started the development in 2017, so that is already a long time, especially in these days. So how can FELA be further leveraged to address today's challenges? Because they are different than the ones we were facing in 2017. And basically, how can it add value to today's geospatial, but also land administration landscape? These are two very critical questions that I would like to pose. And we can move on to the next slide. And these were some general things that I summarized over the time from the expert group. So there is an overlap with IGF, but probably there's the need for a clear differentiation in the things that are different. There is limited awareness of the FELA, so what can you actually do with it? In the end, it is a 20 plus minus, depending on the translation that you're looking at, document. So what can you do with a 20-page document? So there's really the need to have some guidance, probably also in regards to the implementation by country cases. You will hear more of the implementations later on. And then there is probably also insufficient alignment with donor strategies and funding priorities, for example. There, as Cadastre International was one of the developers of the LADM, we have the experience that it takes time. So LADM was also started the development back in 2011. Now it is requested in some of the projects that there is LADM implemented. So it basically took a lot of time, and probably that's also going to be with FELA. I'm just posing these questions. I'm not saying that this should be it, but we have to think about it in this way also. So probably we are in time anyway, but it is good to always ask questions like this. Is there an update needed? Technology is really fast moving. So is there an update needed? AI, map production, there is a lot of new technology happening and new approaches that probably should be in one way or another mentioned. There is certainly a unique, I really need to run. It is a UN framework, so I think this is the key message here. We can move on. There is a lot of research happening. This is just one overview. Yes, I will move on. There's a lot of research happening. I put the source in, you can look at it, and we can move on. The OSCRF, so it is a repository, and we have now a special section on FELA. So there are a lot of documents are in there, and we can move on. There will be soon an update on this repository because a lot of events were happening also recently. So there will be an update. So whenever kind of FELA related documents, this is where you can find the documents also. We can move on. I will skip that one. You can look that up. It's a very good initiative of EuroSTR in the perspective of Europe, where we took FELA and translated it into questions, and that were answered by mapping agencies from Europe, and there are some valuable input. The key here is that the context was Europe, so that's also how the questions were posed. So the key was also that we said, okay, in case that something like this initiative wants to be done in other countries, then probably it has to be, again, adapted to the context. We can move on. We can just skip through the EuroSTR slides. You will get the slides anyway. So I think, this is an interesting, also I wanted to pose it here, an implementation of FELA in Ivory Coast. Just to show you how FELA is applied. We will hear also today some other examples, but there are a lot of examples out there that we are not even aware. So again, to the expert group, probably it's really
valuable to collect all those implementations so that that can also be brought to the committee of experts. Last slide, I think, and yeah, so I will just stop here. There is always more to say than there is time. I really think it's good to have a discussion, and yeah, I'm happy to also for other questions or anything. Thank you for the possibility, Rafaela, to include me here.
Muchas gracias, Eva. La verdad que ha sido muy buena.
Thank you very much, Eva. Your presentation was really good. And in personal, I liked a lot when you were talking about the differences that we need to do and the questions that we can make ourselves. Thank you very much. Please remember you can leave your comments scanning the QR code that you're seeing in the presentation. Next, we're going to the section Mapping Platforms, Tools and Strategies for Land Administration. This will be done by our next presenter, Regina Orbañanos. She's a Mexican architect specialized in international cooperation and urban development with a focus on urban policies based on evidence. Currently, she is the coordinator of the Global Initiative of Land Indicators and a focal point for Latin America of the land tools. She has a great experience in technical cooperation for the sustainable urban development, and she has worked as a manager of data and result officer in the UN, like in Bahrain and Kuwait. And she is a technical coordinator of cities initiatives supporting more than 15 cities. She also collaborated in projects of sustainable mobility and social housing. She will talk about tools of the UN for the implementation of FELA and the effective administration of these tools. So welcome, Regina. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Muchas gracias. Gracias por
Thank you very much
tan amable presentación y agradezco mucho
for the lovely introduction.
por esta invitación.
And I thank you for your invitation as well. I can't control the slides, but
gracias. Bueno, agradezco, como ya me presentaron.
Well, as I said, my name is Regina Orbañanos. I work in Global Land Tool Network.
La red es que es en español la red global de herramientas del suelo.
Global Land Tool Network.
And
today, the specific tools, how they can be used for the FELA implementation.
Como ya muy bien lo explicó, que lo diré muy rápido, Eva María.
As Eva Maria explained already, FELA presents very clearly the importance of the effective land administration, in which you mention that to do this we need to be fit for purpose, inclusive, sustainable, and flexible, so that the land administration can document and acknowledge the relationship between people.
La FELA proporciona a los países
the FELA brings the countries an orientation
y da una plataforma
para of their continuous
en pocas palabras, invita a los países
promotion and invites countries to develop, renew, reform, and strengthen the land administration.
Pero sin embargo, como bien lo explicaba Eva María,
as Eva mentioned, it leaves certain gaps, mainly in terms of this point between the global framework, how it's implemented at a country level. So FELA gives a great scenario to make diagnosis at a country level, but it leaves a lot of open questions in the countries. What can we do about it? So that is the GLTN experience.
una breve introducción.
I want
La
to
Red
give a
Europea de
brief
Herramientas del Suelo tiene casi
introduction.
20 años de
It
existencia
has
y es una
almost 20
alianza
years
entre diferentes
active,
socios
and it's
multisectoriales.
a
El enfoque
multi-sector
central
alliance
es estar
between
aquí
international
comprometidos a aumentar la
partners committed
disponibilidad
to
de
increase the
agua
access
y
to
a reducir
land
la
and
dependencia del
guarantee
suelo.
the safe tenancy for everyone.
Sus principios
Its
básicos por
principles,
los cuales
basic
se funda
principles,
la red
why
es
it's formed,
encontrar formas
is to
innovativas para
find
reconocer,
innovative
registrar
ways
y
to
administrar las diferentes
acknowledge,
formas de
register,
posesión
and
de tierra
administer a
de
variety
manera
of
que sean apropiadas y legítimas para
land
lograr una seguridad
ownership
de tenencia para todos,
so
con un
that it
enfoque basado
achieves
en
safety
los
for
derechos
all
humanos.
based
Por lo
on human
tanto,
rights.
el enfoque pro
So the
pobre
focus is pro
pro pobre
poor
que
people
promueva los enfoques de género
and promotes the
completamente
gender
basados
focus,
desde su
and
inicio.
that is the base for it.
Pero entonces, ¿qué es una herramienta de suelo? ¿Qué es nuestra
What is the
herramienta?
land
La red de
tool?
herramientas de suelo. Herramientas de suelo es una
The land
forma
tool
práctica
is
para
a
realizar un
practical
proyecto.
way
Pueden
to
ser
solve
guías,
an administration
metodologías,
problem. Could be
software, manuales que van acompañando
guidelines,
materiales de
software,
publicación y
manuals
publicaciones.
that go along with documentation and
La premisa por la
publications.
cual se creó la
The
red era
premise why it was
los
created
problemas de la administración del suelo
were
son
the
complejos y
land
necesitamos una
administration
forma
problems because
de
they're complex, and we need a way
hacer paso por paso,
to go step by
dar
step
unos lineamientos y dar herramientas
and
para que
give
las countries
instructions and tools so that the
puedan
countries and the people
ir creando soluciones. Y
can
entonces
create
esas
solutions.
herramientas del suelo,
So those
para
tools,
los criterios para su creación es que tienen que ser
their
innovativas,
criteria
que
for
sean
their
asequibles, sensibles al costo
creation
y que
means that
tengan
they have to be
inclusión
innovative,
para
and they have
su aplicación
a
en cada
strategy
territorio.
for the implementation at a country level.
Ahora, los principios de
The
GLTN están
principles of
altamente reflejados
GLTN are highly reflected in
derechos,
FELA,
la continuidad
the
de los derechos de
continuity
población,
of
el
the land
pro-pobre,
rights, the
enfoque de género,
pro-poor
que sean
focus, the
accesibles a
gender
todos y
focus, and that
adecuados
it's
al
young
propósito
people sensitive
y a las
and appropriate to the purposes of FFP.
Entre ellos, bueno, obviamente, la continuidad, el principio de continuidad de los derechos de tierra es algo que en muchos casos lo veíamos
This is, in many
hace
cases,
20 años,
as
que la
when it
tenencia
started
económica
as 20 years ago,
internos
that the
asociados a
ownership,
los sistemas de administración
the systems of
de la
administration
tierra no
of
permitían
land
cómo
did
capturar
not
absolutamente
allow to capture
los derechos constitucionarios,
the
los derechos
constitutional
informales,
rights, the informal
que no
rights.
se permitían, los sistemas eran muy rígidos
The
y por lo
systems
tanto
were too
no eran
rigid,
capturados por las
and
estrategias
so they weren't
las herramientas
captured by the
formales para la
strategies
gestión.
or the formal tools
Siguiente.
for the land management.
En este contexto, quisiera,
Under this
bueno, en
context,
estos casi 20 años de la red se han
this
desarrollado más de
last
18
20 years of the network, we've
herramientas.
developed more than 18 tools.
Cada una de estas herramientas puede tener
That each of these
multitud
tools can
diferentes,
have a set of
de
different
diferentes publicaciones. Tenemos más
publications.
de 200 publicaciones.
You have more than 200
Entre ellas, aquí,
publications. Among them,
bueno, al interior de la GLTN la tenemos
within
clasificadas
GLTN, we have them
en
classified
estas
in
6 categorías.
themes in
Y he
these
hecho el
6
mapeo
categories and mapping as
de cómo se asocian con las
how they're
diferentes
linked with the
directrices,
different
las guías
guidelines,
estratégicas del FELA,
the strategic
que corresponde
pathways
cada una. En lo que corresponde a la
corresponds to each of
innovación,
them.
dado
What
que
corresponds to innovation,
consideramos que es intrínseco
we
y que
think
transversal
it's
a
intrinsic
todas
and
las
across the
herramientas,
board for all
lo
tools.
he puesto, no voy a hablar específicamente de FEL,
I will
de
not
innovación, pero voy a
specifically
hablar de
talk
las
about
diferentes vías
innovation, but I will talk
estratégicas.
about the strategic pathways.
Entonces, voy a dar simplemente un vistazo muy rápido a los documentos que tenemos.
Thus, a quick
Invitamos
summary of
eventualmente
what
a
we have
compartir
documented. We
las
invite to
publicaciones
share
existentes que
the
puedan
existing
ayudar,
publications
que
that
puedan
can
ayudar a los
help with the
países
goal
a encontrar
for
herramientas
countries
y
to find
metodologías que
tools
puedan ser
and methodologies that might
de
be
su utilidad. En términos de
useful for
política, por
them.
ejemplo,
In regards
trabajamos
to
primero
policies, we work first
al nivel más elevado,
at the highest
la
level,
parte conceptual de qué
the
significa
conceptual
hacer
part
una política
of
del
what it
suelo
means to make a
favorable a los pobres,
policy
qué
to
elementos se deben
favor
de tener en
the poor.
consideración para que sean políticas que sean progresivas
They
y
need to be
redistributivas
progressive and
y
redistributive,
por lo tanto ayuden al desarrollo sostenible.
and that they should help
Por lo
sustainable
tanto,
development.
los diferentes
And
pasos
so the
serían
different
tener
steps would
marcos
be
normativos
to
para
have
coordinar
regulated framework
y herramientas de
to
coordinación,
coordinate and
tanto
tools for
para el
coordination
sector del suelo y los agentes no
for
estatales.
land and non-state agents.
En términos de gobernanza,
Now, regards
instituciones
to
y rendición de
governance,
cuentas, es donde más
institution,
tenemos
and
trabajo.
accountability
Nosotros
is where we have
hemos
more
hablado
work.
en diferentes elementos.
We stepped
No,
the solved in different
igualmente
elements.
comenzamos con la parte
We
conceptual
start
de
off with the
qué
conceptual part
significa los
of
principios de
what it
continuidad de los
means, the
derechos de la
principles
tierra,
for continuity of
y de
land
ahí a
use
temas
rights,
más prácticos, por
and then to
ejemplo,
practical
los sistemas de
topics
registro
like
para la
the
propiedad
logging
en
systems
locales
for
pobres,
properties
cómo se puede
focused
hacer,
pro
qué
poor,
herramientas para registrar la
and
tendencia
the tools
consuetudinaria,
for
y como se habló especialmente
constitutional
hace un momento,
tenure,
la transparencia en la
transparency,
administración del suelo para
and
reducir la
land
incidencia de
used
corrupción
to
en el
reduce
sector.
the
Estos
incidents.
son algunos, como verán en las
These are
imágenes, algunos son
some,
guías, algunos son reportes y algunos son
these are
paquetes de
guidelines, some are
entrenamiento
reports, and
que
some
van
are
paso
training
por paso,
packages
como
that
hacer la
have,
metodología,
for example, how
cuestionarios que
the
se deben
methodology,
preguntar las instituciones.
questionnaires that should be asked. Following slide.
En términos de siendo ONU Habitat, por lo mismo, también nuestro enfoque es en la planificación urbana.
Big focus
Y
in
entre ellas
urban
hemos
planning,
desarrollado
and we've
diferentes
developed
herramientas para
different
cómo hacer
tools
reparcelación o ajuste de
as how
tierras con
to be
enfoque en
plotting land
accesibles
adjustment with a focus
a la población de ingresos bajos, la mejora
for
de barrios
low-income
marginales
population,
o la ordenación del territorio y planificación urbana
marginal
sensible a la tenencia del suelo.
towns, and the ordinance
Cada
for
una de
land
estas
tenure.
herramientas tiene sus
Each of
publicaciones
these
incluidas
tools
en la
have their own
publicación.
publications.
Ahora, en términos de datos, tenemos un
Now,
programa
in regards to data,
específico
we have a
y
specific
justamente
program,
somos
and
Naciones Unidas, ONU Habitat, tenemos
as
la custodia
UN, we have custody
del Objetivo de Desarrollo Sostenible 1.4 de seguridad de tenencia y con
for
gusto
ODS
nos
1.4.2,
complace
and we are happy
mostrar que
to
en
share
2024 se hizo un gran
that in
avance
2024 there was a lot of progress
en la compilación de reportes y es algo que
in
seguimos
compilation
trabajando,
of reports, and we keep working
apoyando
on
a
that,
tanto las
supporting
instituciones de suelo como las instituciones de
the institutions for
estadísticas
land and
a ayudar a
statistics
reportar los indicadores
to
de
help them
tendencia.
report
Pero
the
además tenemos la
10-year
iniciativa de indicadores
statistics
de la tierra, que la cual
for
coordino, que
having
incluye
land statistics that include other
otros indicadores que pueden ayudar
benchmarks
a monitorear a nivel
that can
país o a
help
nivel
to monitor at the country
información
level
catastral, como es la
or like
situación de
cadastral
los datos de la
level
tierra.
in regards to land use.
Ahora, en términos de normas y
So, para agregar
estándares, hemos
in
trabajado con
regards to
muchas de las
norms and
instituciones que
standards,
se
we've
muestran
worked in the
aquí.
present
Nuestro
institutions here.
principal estándar
Our
sería
main
la
standard
herramienta más utilizada para
is our
definir los
widely
indicadores, es
used
el modelo de
tool.
desarrollo de la tenencia social, STDM, que como concepto, obviamente,
As a
es la
concept,
aplicación de la
it
administración
is
del
the
suelo adaptada
application
a las necesidades. Es un concepto que
of land
permite
use
salvar la brecha de
for
protección
need.
de la
It's a
propiedad.
concept
Es
for
un modelo
the gap
de
to
datos,
save in
que es una especialización del Land
the log for
Administration Domain Model, por lo
property.
tanto, alineado con la ISO,
So it's aligned with
y que permite
ISO
la transferibilidad de datos.
and
Y es
helps
a la vez
for
una herramienta, un
data
software de
transfer.
uso libre que
This is
permite
a
a
free
las
use software
instituciones y
that
los
allows
países
institutions and
acceder a
countries
sistemas
to access
tecnológicos
technological
de uso libre.
systems
Y
of free use
el dominio, el STM
or
se ha
open
aplicado en una
ejemplo,
multitud de contextos
TTM has been
innovadores.
applied in a
Un ejemplo
different
el más
innovative contexts.
innovativo
The
recientemente ha
most
sido
recent innovative one
para capturar los derechos de
to
propiedad de
capture
refugiados sirios
property rights
en
for
Jordania y
refugees
Líbano,
in
de
Jordania
manera que se puede
and Libya.
expandir
So it's something
la
that could
administración de suelo
expand
en otros
for
casos que no
land
son los
administration and
tradicionales o
other
que
cases which are not
un
traditional,
sistema de
that
administración
doesn't allow for
tradicional no
a
lo
system
permitiría.
for
Esa
traditional
es una de las
land
partes de la
administration would not
innovación
allow.
que nos
That's
permite
the innovation that allows us
llegar
to
a
reach
otros rincones temáticos. Bueno,
other
obviamente en la
frameworks.
vía de estrategias y
In the strategic pathways
de alianzas,
for
promoción y
alliances,
abogacía,
promotion, and advocacy by being a network with more than 87 partners, 2,000 individuals. It allows us to reach different scenarios. I want to conclude with capacity and education, sharing that we operate and cooperate with different academic institutions where we align postgraduate studies and graduate studies, courses and workshops in association with different present institutions, and we have an online platform where we can access the different courses. With this, I conclude. This is simply a small presentation of the different tools that might be useful for countries and expressing availability of GLTN and UN habitats to help the implementation of countries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Regina. It is a very interesting presentation. And we concluded that we have to learn about the different tools that you've mentioned. Interesting presentation. Thank you, Regina. Up until now, we're sure that there should be a lot of questions. So I'd like to remind you that in the corner of the slide of the presentation, there's a QR code so that you can scan it and leave your questions and comments, which we will share afterwards, and that each of them will be answered by each of the experts and speakers. So continuing with the timeline, we will introduce Elizabeth Lemblanc. She's our next speaker. She has more than 15 years of experience in project managing and public complex projects. She also helps institutions to structure strategic itineraries, analyzing risks, developing strategies for support of global policy. Public policies. Our focus is centered on the integration of key actors, the quality of data, and performance of the systems of information. In this function, she collaborates with the ministries of territorial ordinance. Her presentation in regards to the implementation of FELA through the geoportal of urban planning from France. We would love to hear from you, Elizabeth, so that you could speak to us about this, which is so interesting. And for sure, we will take some ideas from that. Elizabeth, you have 10 minutes starting from now. The mic and screen is yours. Welcome.
Thank you for the introduction and for having me today. So, yes, as starter, I'm gonna explain what is IGN. There. Oh no, it's going too fast. So IGN is the benchmark public institution for cartography, geospatial data, and territorial observation in France. Thanks to its expertise in geodesy, remote sensing, and 3D modeling, IGN produces accurate and innovative data for land knowledge and land use planning. IGN supports public policies by providing spatial analysis and tools that are essential to decision making. So for rapid context, the introduction to the French Town Planning Code, which defines the general criteria to be taken in account in town and country planning in France, is 17 pages long. So the code defines the main guidelines for regional planning. It aims to reconcile urban development with preservation of natural area, guaranteeing architectural and landscape quality, and to respond to social, environmental, and health issues of our time. So these regulations, local town planning schemes, zoning, easements, guidance documents, are not simply technical constraints. They give concrete expression to the objectives of the code, combating urban sprawl, promoting social diversity, sustainable mobility, risk prevention, and adapting to climate change. There you go. So the genesis of the portal: on March 14, 2007, the European Union adopted the Inspire Directive, which established the basis for geographic information infrastructure to promote environmental protection and facilitate the dissemination, availability, use, and reuse of geographic data. As part of implementing this directive, on December 19th, 2013, French government decided to create Urban National Planning Regulatory Information Portal named Géoportail de l'Urbanisme, or GPU. The first version was launched in 2016. Since January 2016, local authorities have been required to make their planning document available online. And since January 2020, the GPU is required to get all publication of new version of urban planning documents. So the GPU provides access to regional planning regulation. It's a central tool. It promotes transparency, accessibility, and the modernization of public action in towns and country planning. It facilitates consultation, analysis, and reuse of urban planning data on the whole French territory, including all French overseas departments. So, what land administration document is in the GPU? In France, any municipality wishing to plan its urban development can choose between two local urban planning documents: the carte communale, or CC. That's not good. I want to go back. Not the right. There you go. So, where am I going? What's happening? Two urban local planning documents. So the CC, or carte communale, is a simple graphic urban planning document for small municipalities that have not drawn up a better local planning document. It enables them to designate areas where construction is permitted and issue building permits. The carte communale comprises of a presentation report and one or more graphic documents. The PLU, Plan Local d'Urbanisme, is a more sophisticated urban planning document that sets out development project for municipality or group of local authorities. It enables municipality to adapt its regulations to specific features of its territory in line with its urban development project. With that, we can also find on the GPU the Schéma de cohérence territoriale. That's a long-term, around 20 years, intermunicipal strategic planning document drawn up on the scale of a large catchment area. And you also find all easements that are administrative restriction on property rights authorized by law for the benefit of public bodies, concessionaries of public services of work. There, thank you. So GPU now covers almost 91% of the French territory in all forms. This represents an impressive volume of data. It's over 14 terabytes. In terms of traffic, the portal registers almost 4 million visitors a year and still growing. A total of 285 terabytes of data are today downloaded yearly, and almost 200 million visualization requests are processed a year, testifying to the growing interest in this data essential to regional planning. Next one. Sorry, I can control it. Thank you. So this is an example of display, and as you can see, you've got different scales from plot details information to general land management information. Next one, please. Sorry, it's not working. So prior to publication, several steps ensure the quality and conformity of digital planning documents. First, the files are uploaded to the platform, then subjected to a conformity check in accordance with standards. Next, a preview stage checks the accuracy of the documents. This allows users to correct any error or inconsistency before they are put online. Once validated, the files are forwarded to the office responsible for legality control. These steps formalize filing and gives the document its legal status. Finally, a version history is kept throughout the process. This enables you to follow every evolution of the document from its creation to its final unforeseeable filing. Next one, please. So the website offers a tool to help the provider to check that his data is standardized, ensuring the compliance with the national data standard. It checks the conceptual data model, including zoning, prescription, appendix, and graphic layout. It's also look at a catalog of objects like zone types, prescription, and information. It checks the special structuring rules like topology and georeferencing and the standardized file formats and names. So this ensures interoperability and correct use in digital tools like the one we will see now. Next one, please. So I'm going to introduce you to some use cases that actually get all the information from the GPU to have really specific use. So this is called Aerial. To pinpoint the exact location of a property, the Aerial platform uses cadastral and urban planning data. It accurately identifies the address, plot, and municipality concern. This location is then cross-referenced with various risk prevention plans, natural risk prevention plans, seismic zones, soil information sectors, radon potential zones, and noise exposure plans. Finally, the site automatically generates a prefied, ready-to-use risk report of the plots. Next one, please. This one is for a research use case. So it's called Smart PLU, and they are tools that use advanced artificial intelligence technology to process urban planning documents, only often available in PDF format. Thanks to optical character recognition and machine learning, they are able to automatically extract the planning rules contained in the document. These rules are then modeled and structured as data, ready to use in digital tools such as Geographic Information System, GIS, or planning simulators. This makes for faster reading, faster analysis, and better anticipation of regulatory constraints. Next one, please. So this one is to standardize land artificialization calculus. So by cross-referencing urban planning data with current land use, it is now possible to precisely quantify the area still available for urbanization. This analysis also makes it possible to detect natural or agricultural areas that have already been developed, sometimes outside the plan frameworks. Next one, please. So today, land use lies at the heart of many public policies. It involves a wide range of specialized stakeholders and raises complex issues that must be translated into concrete reglementation at the local level. To support this transformation, a new tool is developed in IGN based on this data. It's the digital twin of the territory. It's a digital replica of France and all its territories, a powerful planning and decision-making tool for states, local authorities, and businesses. This digital twin will act as a laboratory for experimentation. It will also allow us to anticipate, simulate, and better understand regional planning while promoting citizen participation in significant decisions. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Gracias, Elizabeth, por tu presentación. La verdad que muy
Thank you,
interesante
Elizabeth, for
y
your presentation.
felicidades
interesting, and congratulations for the progress that you've had. It is noteworthy, it is a noteworthy tool that you've shown, and it'd be very interesting to be able to analyze how we can adapt to our other countries that are interested in creating something similar. The truth is that it's a tool that can be adapted to many other tools. It's great. Congratulations, and thank you for your presentation, Elizabeth. We've wrapped up this section. Nonetheless, up next, I will leave you with Rosario Casanova, who will guide us in this webinar. We will be moderating the section for experiences from countries where we will listen experiences from Argentina, Nigeria, Mexico, and Sierra Leone, where they've explored the implementation of this FELA framework. So, Rosario, you're welcome. Thank you, Denise. First of all, I'd like to thank the previous presentations and the following ones. The idea is to do a small presentation so that those that do not know me, or at least know what hat I'm wearing today, I'm working in IGGIM, collaborating from the academic network, so I'm thankful for the presentation from the Secretariat to effectively generate this vision from UNGGIM. I'm president of the academic network, as I mentioned, for the Americas, and as well, we've been collaborating very close with the non-administration group from UNGGIM and Americas in particular, and see this proposal. On the other hand, from the international world, the geospatial world, I'm in the International Federation of Agriculturists. I'm also part of the task force for the working group for the SDGs. Why do I mention this? Because this way we can link the proposal. And that's why we have this reference. That's how to identify or how to actually make it so that professionals in the community in general are linked to this proposal so that they know how to apply it, so that they can interpret and learn about FELA. That's why this initiative was generating of creating these webinars. And as Rafaela, she will not have much time afterwards. And it was stated, I think, by Eva Maria in regards to the survey with EuroSDR that was made to see the status of the situation about application of the FELA framework. We're elaborating it for the survey for Americas as well. So that is progress in regards to the proposals that we've been working in. I have a script for, but as many of you know me, I kind of stray away from it. I want to thank the Secretariat and especially UNGGIM, Blake, and the team from UNGGIM Americas, Sofia Nilo, Isis. I want to thank our co-chair, the Bishop and Fernanda Bale, that are in this meeting as well. So I want to thank the contribution and from the community of FIG, where we have a lot of members that are participating in this activity. So we want to thank you all for joining in this proposal. Without further ado, I remind you that we have the QR code. And if you have any questions, please send us the questions because we will answer them after the webinar is over. For me, it's an honor to introduce a friend, Mario Pimeto. He currently is cadastre professor from the National University of Córdoba in Argentina, as well as an expert in the topic of cadastres in the great research project that we're doing together, which refers to ethics and geographic data. So I'm thankful for these minutes to be able to share with you. We'll talk about the topic of SIT to SATs, guidelines to integrate FELA in the province of Córdoba, Argentina. Mario, thank you for having accepted. The floor is yours.
Buenos días y buenas tardes a
Good morning,
todos.
good
Y
afternoon,
bueno, con tantos
everyone.
agradecimientos no
With so
voy a
many
hacer
things,
muy
I
extensa
will
el inicio, pero bueno, sí agradecer en general
won't spend so
a
much time in
la
the beginning, but I
invitación a
want to
formar
thank
parte
the
del
invitation
programa y
to being
poder
part of the
compartir
program and being able to share
digamos, alguna modesta experiencia que estamos
our
iniciando
modest
en la
experience
provincia
that
de
we are
Córdoba, en
beginning in the
Argentina,
province of Córdoba
que
in
es la
Argentina,
segunda provincia
which
a
is the
nivel
second
de
province
población en nuestro
at the
país.
population levels in our
Bueno,
country.
la presentación utiliza
So the
dos
presentation
siglas, los sistemas de
uses two
información territorial,
acronyms,
que son básicamente las
System
herramientas
of
que
Territorial
usamos en
Information,
Argentina
which are the
en
tools
la
that we use
administración
in
de los
Argentina
catastros,
for the
y
administration of
promueve
cadasters, and it
reflexionar un poco
promotes
su
to
evolución
reflect
a los sistemas de
on the
administración
evolution
actuales.
in
Bueno,
the land
siguiente.
administration systems.
La placa es, ok. Bueno, el caso que voy a
So the case
comentar
that I will mention,
no tiene que ver aún con una
it still doesn't have
implementación
to do with an
operativa de
implementation, an
FELA en nuestra
operational
provincia, sino
implementation of FELA in our province,
compartir la
but
experiencia
I
de
want to
haber
share the experience
diseñado
of
una
having
reforma
had
catastral en nuestra
designed
provincia
a
a nivel de proyecto,
cadastral reform in our province for our
incorporando un
project,
poco las directrices de
including
FELA, compartir
the
cómo ha sido
FELA
esa experiencia,
guidelines,
cómo han sido las
sharing
discusiones.
experiences, how
De qué se
discussions have
trata
gone,
el modelo
and
o el
what the model
alcance
is
de la
about, or
reforma
the scope of
incorporando
the
FELA
reform,
en la
incorporating
administración
FELA
territorial de nuestra provincia.
in the
Es un
administration
trabajo llevado adelante desde la
of land
universidad
use in our
para el
provinces.
gobierno, particularmente para el área del
For
catastro
the
y
government,
de la
for the
infraestructura
cadastral
de datos
area, and for
geoespaciales,
the
y
geospatial
innovando
data
la
infrastructure,
incorporación de los gobiernos
innovating
locales o de los
the
municipios.
incorporation of local
Este
governments
proceso
or municipalities. This process
se llevó durante varios años.
was done throughout
Allí
many
remarco
years.
entre 2019 y 2013.
In
Fueron varios
2019 and
años de diseño ejecutivo,
2013,
de
there were a lot
discusiones.
of executive
Actualmente este proyecto está
decisions.
aprobado
Currently,
con
this project
financiamiento
is
del Banco
approved
Interamericano de
with
Desarrollo,
Inter-American Development
terminado
Bank
de
funds
elaborar, formulado con pliegos para su licitación, así que tiene un grado de avance muy
from the
importante. En líneas generales, el proyecto
applied with things that were
buscaba
requested
o
in
fue
tenders. The
motivado para
project
modernizar
search
el sistema de
or was
información
sought
territorial,
to modernize
y la
the
innovación
system of
fue
land
avanzar
information,
hacia una mejora en la gestión del
moving towards
territorio,
an improvement,
incorporando los gobiernos locales,
including
que
local
en nuestro
governments
caso se llaman
that in our
municipios y en
case
pueblos
are
más
called
pequeños comunas.
municipalities
La
and the
siguiente,
smaller towns.
avanzamos a la siguiente. Bueno, algunas pocas notas de la
So a few
administración
notes in
territorial en
regards
Argentina para la
to
audiencia que no es
Argentina
que es de otros países. Argentina es un país
administration.
federal.
It's a federal
Entonces, las
country,
funciones que tienen que ver con la
so the
administración
functions that have to
territorial
do
se
with land
distribuyen entre
administration
el
are
nivel de las
distributed
provincias, que en
within the
nuestro
level
país
of provinces.
existen 24
There are
jurisdicciones, los
24
gobiernos locales,
jurisdictions
que en nuestro
and local
país
governments in our
hay más de
countries. There's
2.300
more than
gobiernos locales. En
2,300
el nivel de las
local
provincias,
governments at the
identificamos las funciones
province
que
levels,
tienen que
and we
ver con la
identified the
seguridad
functions that have to
jurídica,
do
el
with
registro de la propiedad
legal
inmueble,
safety,
los
log of
catastros y la
property,
registración de las
cadasters,
transferencias, y
and
la
logs of
función de la
transfers,
evaluación de
and the
los
functions of
inmuebles
valuation
para el cobro de los
of
impuestos prediales. También la función del desarrollo de los
real
datos
estate
básicos y fundamentales
and the
y las
development
iniciativas de
of basic
infraestructuras de
data.
datos
The
espaciales
initiatives
también las
for the
encontramos
infrastructure of space
fuertemente a
data
nivel de las
are
provincias. En
strongly
cambio, los
sought in
municipios
the province levels. On the
identificamos
other
las
hand,
funciones que tienen que
municipalities,
ver
we
con la
identify the functions that have
planificación,
to
el
do with
uso del suelo
planification,
y el
land use,
control del desarrollo
and
territorial,
control
desde
for
la
land
construcción de
development,
viviendas hasta la construcción de vías, infraestructuras, etcétera.
homes and
En
paths
general, en
and roads
Argentina y en el
construction.
caso de Córdoba,
In Argentina, in the
encontramos
case of Córdoba,
fortalezas en la
we
actividad
found
catastral. El
strengths
catastro es
in
un registro
cadastral
público,
activity. It's a public
así,
log.
digamos, con dicho estatus puesto en una ley. Es muy importante la
It's stated in a
tradición a nivel
law.
de la
Tradition is
medición de la
very important in
propiedad y de la
regards to the measurement
registración
of
de la propiedad,
property and
y la actividad
logging the
catastral tiene muchos años en nuestro
property.
país,
And
lo
cadastral
cual
activity
muestra
has many years in the
actualmente
country, which
bases
currently
de datos
shows in
bastante enriquecidas.
databases that are
Y
quite
como
rich.
desafíos
But as
encontramos
challenges, we
esta
found
un poco separación de las funciones
the segmentation of
referida a la
functions
administración
in referred
territorial
in
en los
regards to
municipios y
land
en las
administration in
provincias,
municipalities
que
and provinces,
presenta algunos
which presents
inconvenientes.
some
Vamos a la siguiente.
inconveniences.
Bueno, aquí una una gráfica para remarcar
a small
la
graphic
problemática
to
que tenemos en la
frame
provincia de
the
Córdoba
problem
y
that
que
we
en
have in the
general
province of
encontramos
Córdoba and that we generally
con
find
matices
with
en la
different
mayoría o en
edges
casi todas
in
las
many of
provincias
them,
de nuestro país,
especially the provinces of
en
our
relación a lo que
country in
hablaba o
regards to what I
mencionábamos o
mentioned
repasábamos
or
sobre
we
las
went
funciones de la
over in regards
administración
to the
territorial
function
entre el
of
nivel
land
provincial
administration
y el nivel
between the
local, con algunas
provincial and local
pequeñas
level, with
superposiciones
some
que
small
hace al estudio del
overlapping, which
valor de las
makes
propiedades,
the study of value of
coexistiendo un poco los
property
esfuerzos entre
coexisting with
provincias y
the efforts
municipios
between
y en lo que hace
provinces
al
and
control del uso de la
municipalities,
tierra,
makes
en lo que hace a
control
la
for
tierra
land
rural
use,
en las
rural
provincias y
lands
en los
in
espacios
provinces
urbanos en donde vive
and
la
urban
mayoría de la
spaces where
población
most of the
en manos
population
de los
lives.
municipios.
It's at
Avanzamos
hands
hacia
of
el
the
siguiente.
municipalities.
Bueno, en el nivel provincial
At
encontramos en
the
nuestra
provincial level,
provincia
we
una provincia de
found in our province
165.000
is
kilómetros
about
cuadrados, es una provincia importante, cuenta con
165,000
más
square
de 400
kilometers, has
localidades y
more than
400
400
gobiernos locales
localities,
y más de 2 millones de inmuebles.
more than
La
2
situación en el nivel provincial
million
es relativamente buena.
homes.
Allí con un tilde verde ponemos
With a
el
green
acento en
check
algunos
mark,
aspectos
we
positivos.
see some
El
positive
catastro es
aspects.
100%
Cadastre is
digital a nivel de
100%
herramientas, de
digital at the
trámites, de bases de
tools
datos,
process and
un
level,
alto vínculo
has
con
a
el registro de
high linkage
titulares.
with
Hay una
the
gran
right
interoperabilidad
owners. There's
entre esas bases de datos de dichos ambos registros.
connection
Hay
with those
una
both those
importante
databases.
tradición
There's an
en el
important
trabajo de la
tradition
calidad de
in
datos,
the quality
saneamiento
of data,
catastral, actualización catastral,
data
valoración
curation,
inmobiliaria
cadastre
a
curation,
niveles de mercado con
valuation
un
in
observatorio inmobiliario. Cuenta
homes
con una iniciativa IDE de
as an
infraestructura de
initiative
datos
and
muy
of data
fuerte, muy
infrastructure
activa, que
that's
integra
quite
mucha
active,
información
that
y
integrates a lot
permite
of
aplicar una
information
fuerte
and allows
política
the
de datos
application of
abiertos.
strong policies of
Ahora, si vamos a la siguiente
open
filmina,
data. We go to the next one.
placa, dichos beneficios o
Said
dichos niveles de
benefits,
desarrollo en el nivel provincial no han
provincial
logrado ser
level,
transferidos
haven't been
de la
able
misma
to be
manera en los
transferred at the
gobiernos
same
locales.
way
La
in the
situación
local governments.
con las funciones de la administración
With the
territorial en el
functions
nivel
of
local
land administration, the local level,
encuentra que todos los
where
municipios
we
tienen
find
sus
that all
propias
municipalities have
herramientas, sus
their
propios
own
sistemas de
tools, their
información, sus
own
propias bases
information
de
systems,
datos
their own databases
administradas de manera
managed
duplicada con el nivel provincial
in a
y
duplicated
tampoco
manner
cuenta
with
con
the
el mismo
provincial
nivel de
level. It
desarrollo a
doesn't
nivel de
have the same
tecnología
level
y
of
empezamos a
development or the same
observar
level of
que muchos
technology.
de
We
los
start to
beneficios
see
de
that many of the
desarrollo, las
benefits,
inversiones en el
the
nivel provincial,
developments in the
no se
provincial
dan de la
level
misma manera en el
are
nivel
not
local, en
given at
donde
the same local
digamos,
level.
se llevan adelante funciones del manejo del
Or we have
territorio
functions of
igualmente
land
importantes.
management that are
Empezamos a identificar
just as important. We start
repeticiones o
to identify
superposiciones de
repetitions,
sistemas, de bases de
overlapping
datos,
systems of
duplicidad o
databases,
secuencialidad de
duplicity or
trámites. El
sequentiality
propietario
of
debe realizar
processes.
un
The
trámite
right owner
de licencia de
must do
construcción ante
a
gobierno
process
local y luego
for
se
a
debe
license
repetir
for
ese
construction
trámite
of
en el nivel
local government. That
provincial.
same must be
En
repeated at
consecuencia,
the
aquí está
provincial
gran
level.
parte de
And
los
as a
desafíos.
consequence, we have
En
a
la
majority
siguiente.
part of the
El
challenges.
proyecto elaborado en Córdoba, que
The
comentaba
project
al
in
inicio,
Córdoba
que
that I
durante
mentioned at the
4 años
beginning, that for 4 years it was
evolucionando en su formulación, en su
evolving in its
alcance,
formulation and
implica
scope.
mutar o
It
evolucionar un
implies the
sistema de
mutation
información
or evolution
territorial
of
que
a
tiene no solo Córdoba,
territorial
sino en general
information system that
todas
not
las
only
provincias
Córdoba
de
has, but
Argentina
all
basadas
provinces in Argentina
o
have a
tienen un perfil
base,
principalmente
or
de
SITs have a
sistemas de
profile
información
of
basado en
information
parcelas
systems that are
a
based
un
on
sistema de
plots
administración del
towards
territorio que
a land
incorpore
administration
otras
system that includes
funciones de
other
administración
functions
territorial,
for land administration,
principalmente que incorpore
mainly that
la
it should
problemática de los
include
municipios.
to
En esa
the
línea, el alcance
problematic
del
of the
proyecto tiene que ver con
municipalities. The scope of the project
la conformación de un
needs to
registro único de
have the compilation
propiedades
of a
para que no
unique
exista una
log of
duplicación
property
con los
so there's
municipios,
no
la
duplication
creación
with
de
the
una
municipalities, the
herramienta única
creation
para que
of
no
a unique
exista
tool
una
so that
herramienta muy
there's
desarrollada en el nivel
not
provincial y
one
más
tool
de
develop
400
with higher
herramientas, muchas
development and
incluso
more
a
than
veces
400
no muy avanzadas
tools
o no
that are not
digitales
so
en los
advanced or
gobiernos
not
locales,
digital in
para
local
que haya
governments.
una ventanilla
So
o
there's
un
a
espacio único de trámites y no exista
one-stop
una
shop
duplicidad de
and
trámites
that
en el
there's
nivel local y en
no
el nivel provincial.
duplication of processes at the
digamos,
provincial
impulse una
and
fuerte
local level. It should
digitalización,
push
modernización y
for strong
estandarización de
digitalization,
los procesos.
modernization, and
Los
standardization among
trámites y los
municipalities
modelos de datos
because
en más de 400
processes
municipios
and data
también
models in more than 400
exhiben muchas
municipalities
diferencias entre ellos. En el
show
proyecto,
many differences
allí
among
vemos
them.
un pequeño
The
mapa
project, we
de la
see a
provincia de
small
Córdoba con
map
400 municipios. Bueno,
with the
este es un
400
proyecto muy
municipalities.
importante
This is
que
a very
implica
strong
un gran
project
trabajo a nivel de desarrollo de
that
sistemas,
shows a high level of system development. 2 minutes,
desarrollo de
Mario.
sistemas, de integración y homogenización de datos
Integration and
y de
standardization of
fortalecimiento
data
de capacidades.
and strengthening
Vamos hacia la siguiente.
capacities. Let's go to the next one.
Bueno, en estas tres
Well,
placas que
in
invito a
these
que las
three
pasemos un
layers
poco,
that I want you to
digamos, sin esperar mucho, presento
skim
para el
through it,
material que luego
I
se puede
want to
distribuir una
present the material
correlación
that
del alcance del
later can be
proyecto
distributed,
SAS
a scope of
con
the
las 9 vías
projects
estratégicas de
with the
FELA.
9
Allí se
pathways
hace
of
mucho
FELA.
hincapié en un
We
enfoque
highlight
de gobernanza
on
participativa de este nuevo
participative
sistema de
governance of
administración del
this new
territorio entre el
system of
gobierno
administration
provincial
of the
y el
territory
gobierno de los
within the
municipios,
provincial
la
governance
eliminación de
and the
duplicidad de
municipality
datos,
governance,
mayores
the duplicity of
asociaciones con
data,
entidades profesionales.
higher
El nivel
association with
provincial tiene
professional
una larga
entities. The
tradición
provincial
de
level has
trabajar
a
con
long
los profesionales de
tradition
la
of
tierra,
working
los
with
agrimensores. Por
land
ejemplo, el SAT
professionals like
promueve una asociación
surveyors.
de otros profesionales como los arquitectos,
It
los
provides
urbanistas,
the
los
promotion of
agentes
other professionals
inmobiliarios,
such as architects,
etc.
urbanists,
Bueno,
real
adopción de
estate agents,
estándares como
etc.
el
The
land,
adoption of standards such
disminuir las
as
asimetrías entre los gobiernos
the land,
locales, etc. Vamos hacia la
distribute
última.
the asymmetries between local governments,
Bueno,
etc.
algunos de los
Well,
resultados,
some of the results,
algunos de los resultados importantes de este proyecto que se esperan
important
obtener en
results of
línea
this
con las vías
project we aim
estratégicas y los
to
objetivos
obtain
de FELA
is
son fortalecer la gobernanza del
strengthening the
territorio y la
territorial
transparencia
governance
en
and
el
the
manejo del
transparency
territorio
in the
y
management of the land
ampliar el nivel de
and
asociaciones,
broaden the level of
eliminar la duplicación de
association,
datos y
eliminate the
mejorar la calidad de la
redundancy of
información que
data,
impacta
and
de manera
increase the
importante
quality of the
en la
information,
administración del
which
territorio de nuestra
impacts
provincia.
importantly in the management of the land of
Enriquecer
in our
los modelos de
province,
datos incorporando propiedades
and
informales,
make
aspectos de la
the
tierra
information of
pública
data more
y el uso del
robust,
suelo, mucha
the,
información que está en el
with the
nivel de
integration of the use of
municipios.
land information, the informal
Esta mayor
properties, public land,
eficiencia
etc.
y
This higher
estandarización a
efficiency and
nivel de una plataforma
standardization
única
at
va
a
a
one-stop
bajar los
shop
tiempos de los trámites,
platform
va a dar más
will
eficiencia
reduce
en el
the
manejo
time
de
of
tierra y eso va a ser de gran
the
provecho para los propietarios, para
processes,
los
and this will be
profesionales
more
y para
efficient for
los
the
desarrollistas o
owners
inversores, una
and
mayor
the
estandarización de todos
investors,
los trámites que hoy se hacen
a
de manera diferente
bigger
entre todos los municipios,
standardization
con
of
una
the
disminución de las
processes
asimetrías
and
entre
a
todos los
reduction of the
municipios
redundancies
que
between the
actualmente
municipalities that
se puede
currently
identificar entre
we can
todas las,
identify
más de las
among
400 localidades
all
de nuestra
the
provincia.
more than
Bueno, creo
400
que hay una placa más y
localities in our provinces.
vamos a la última. Bueno,
Let's go
nada
with
más.
the last one.
Muchísimas
Nothing
gracias.
else. Thank
Un
you very
resumen de
much.
nuestro proceso
A
de
summary of our
discusión y de
process of
reflexión entre la academia y
discussion
el
and
gobierno
reflection
para
between the academy and the
diseñar un
government
proceso de
to design
reforma de
a
nivel
process of
provincial que ha
reform at a
sido
provincial
de
level
desarrollo importante en
and
Argentina,
that has an
queriendo
important
integrar en
development
nivel
in
local
Argentina, trying to
se
integrate at a
identifican
local
nuevas
level
funciones u otras
to
funciones realmente
identify
importantes del
new
manejo del land.
functions
Muchas gracias.
in the land management. Thank you very
Muchísimas
much.
gracias, Mario. Gracias por,
Thank you
aparte
very much,
por el tiempo,
Mario,
por acotado y por el
for
resumen final que me hiciste, que era
the
un poco
final
lo que quería
summary,
proponer.
which was something I
Agradezco
wanted
mucho,
to
me parece
propose.
excelente
So
cómo,
thank you very
cómo se
much.
está
It's
dando todo el
excellent
diálogo desde lo que es la parte
how
de los
the
componentes
discussion's been given
internacionales
in
o de la
regards to the
mirada
components
que
in
nos
the
presentó Eva y
government
Paula,
or
Eva. Después también
in
la
regards
parte
to
de
the
la
other
visión
elements
de Regina desde
presented
esa
by
mirada
Eva and Regina
internacional con documentación
with
tangible.
this
Después
international
Elizabeth, vamos a un
look,
caso a
and
nivel
then
nacional,
Elizabeth,
allí a
we
Erfurt,
go
y ahora
with a
siguiendo contigo,
national
Mario,
case. And with
haremos,
you,
además de
Mario,
bajar la
I want to
escala,
add
siempre
that
para aumentar la escala y ver hacia lo provincial o hacia lo local,
we
también estamos
are
viendo la
starting seeing the
posibilidad y o el
provincial
vínculo
level and
importante que
also
también se
the
mencionaba previamente
importance
de
of partnerships, the interrelationship, the importance of the academy perspective in regards to the implementation, and this perspective as a province and municipalities. So I think it's a great work that you've been doing, and I want to congratulate you. We will want more details then. So we will be pending for more information. And from Argentina, we go to Nigeria. So now we invite Israel Taiwo. He is a lecturer and a head of surveying and geoinformatics department of Federal Polytechnic Ado Ekiti, Nigeria. He's also the chair of the group of work 7.2 of FYG about the land administration, the fit for purpose land administration, and he will present the planification of effective land use from Nigeria. So Israel, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, everyone. I am Israel Taiwo from Nigeria, and I hope everybody can hear me. And I will quickly do this presentation.
Perfect, Israel. Don't worry.
We
are okay.
Effective land administration lessons for and from Nigeria. So I'll follow this presentation outline. I would appreciate if somebody can please control the slides at your hand. Next slide now. Okay. Next slide, please. The next one.
Just in the mute to remember, Israel, that we have 10 minutes for the presentation. I will let you know 2 minutes before ending, okay?
Thank you, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Rosario. Yeah, so I would just quickly like to, okay, now you've gone one slide ahead of me. I would appreciate if you can come just one more slide behind, and that will be fine. So I would like to just remind us the essential goal, the essential importance, just a little reminder of tenure security as the major goal of land administration. And I like to say, as the goal expands on any side, the need for political will in its realization cannot be overstated. So this is one thing this presentation outlines, and one thing that is vital for the implementation of frameworks and guidelines, etc. I like to also say that FELA has the ambitious goal of bringing the social and economic and environmental goals into perspective at the inception of implementations, and which is one reason why what we're doing this evening is significant. Sorry, it's evening here in Nigeria. Next slide, please. So a little background of the Nigerian land administration system. In Nigeria, there is a principal document called the Land Use Act of 1978, and I'd like to also mention that this act governs land administration nationally, and the act categorizes land into two main types. We have the urban and then the rural, which is expected to be controlled by the local government. Now, it's also very important I mentioned to us that Nigeria has 36 states and 1 federal capital territory. So, and all these territories have various and similar additional instruments to regulate land administration and land use. So the provision of this principal act is supreme and takes precedence when it conflicts with more recent state laws and provisions that reflect FELA, that reflects the fit for purpose principles, that reflects the voluntary, the VGGT essentially on land. Then this highlights the need for revision of the principal document guiding land administration in Nigeria, because most of the states, when they are able to modify their laws, when they're able to amend their own local laws, the national document itself takes precedence on them, and then it becomes a challenge. Okay, I'd also like to mention, it's a quote, it's a message from the chair of the Presidential Technical Committee on Land Reform, Professor Peter Adeniyi, who sometimes mentioned in 2013 that 97.5% of Nigerians' land remains unregistered. And of course, this is important that we all focus on this in Nigeria, and in also because there are similar contexts over in developing countries and the likes. So unfortunately, the activities of this committee was stalled for some years, but then recently at the World Bank Land Conference, the Honorable Minister for Housing and Development, Architect Hamed Musa Dangiwa, indeed acknowledged the importance of land administration in fostering a better life for the people and the planet and he emphasized the readiness of Nigeria in reforming its land administration. So this, I believe, that is bringing some light into Nigerian situation. Next slide, please. And I think I've had enough of the introduction to the Land Use Act. So I mentioned earlier on that it had 36 states plus the Federal Capital Territory, here in Nigeria, and then we have what we call the state lands. And all the lands are vested, except land in the federal government. They are vested in the state governor. So this shows the importance or the potency of the governor on the land where they govern. And then there is this trusteeship part of it, where the governor holds this land in trust for the people. And then this land is allocated for individuals and organizations, and then for several purposes, essentially. Now, next slide. Now, in the Nigerian land administration system, we have here in Nigeria, there are certain existing processes and actors of this system. One of it is the land surveying and mapping, where the surveyors are active. Then we have the land registration and land titling. And then we have the land use planning and zoning. Then we have the land valuation and taxation, where we have the estate surveyors. And then we have the dispute resolution mechanisms. Now, essentially, these provisions, these particular processes and actors are backed up by the Land Use Act and by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But however, there are certain amendments based on recent technology, based on recent modifications and recent concepts like the framework for effective land administration. There are certain amendments that has been proposed by people. One of it is the decentralization of land control to local governments, so that people at the grassroots can have more power. Another one is a streamlining of the governor's consent to reduce cost and aid affordability, essentially. Then the compensation of land acquisitions, then the digitalization of land records, and also the part where we need to recognize more forms of land them into the Constitution, and also the Constitution amendment itself. The principal document that guides the nation itself needs to be amended such that it can allow for more flexibility in land administration and granting local communities more autonomy while ensuring efficient government oversight. Now, next slide. So while I was preparing for this presentation, I dared to identify certain places in Nigeria where they've implemented a form of innovation into the way the land is administered. Like I earlier mentioned, beyond the scope of the Land Use Act, which guides it, other states have been able to borrow knowledge from the framework for effective land administration, from the fit for purpose concept, and from the VGGT also, and to modify how land is administered in their state. And I have some states in this place. I'd like to mention that this list is not exhaustive, but I'll just speak on maybe 2 or 3 of them as I progress. Now, next slide. So before I speak on them, I'd like to just reflect on the goals of FELA itself, because while trying to assess the impact or how much states have done in this regard, then I looked specifically at the FELA goals and then what the states have been able to do in relation to land administration and management. So, well, I know this is a document that every one of us have access to, so I will not take too much time on it, but I'd like to just reflect that we're looking at transparency and accountability, gender responsiveness and inclusive of vulnerable groups, affordable investment and economic return assured, and the likes like that. And let's go to the next slide. And I'll take the first case study in Edo State, the Edo example. In Edo State, next slide, please. In Edo State, there is this integrated GIS platform for the CFO issuance, which has significantly impacted the way land is administered. Against the earlier statistics of 97.5% left unregistered, I can say today that about 25% or more than 25% of Edo State land has been registered because of the way in which they decided to modify what they are doing. And some of the things they used were not tagged FELA, neither were they tagged fit for purpose. But what they were essentially doing, if you look at these frameworks or the principles guiding the fit for purpose, you will realize that they are actually in tandem with what some of the states are doing. However, there are certain dichotomy, there are certain differences between what they are doing and then what these guidelines or the frameworks dictates. Now, essentially, like I mentioned earlier, there is integrated GIS platform for CFO issuance that helps to leverage auto photos instead of the conventional surveying methods alone. And then surveys are now being charted on GIS platform to aid verification. Accuracy of the survey plans are being verified, unlike times when two persons are issued two different CFOs on the same land. So these are significantly improved. Now, also we have the use of technology, emphasizing innovation as in FELA. And also we have the ability to actually address challenges of improved efficiency, challenges of maybe vegetation cover, challenges of power failure, challenges of network related issues, and all those things. Then incomplete documentation. Now, while doing a little research towards this, I realized that one of the biggest challenges that Edo State's GIS example has currently is the incomplete documentation, creating a need for digitization of existing land records. The colleague I interacted with made it clear that it was easier to actually do the new registrations than to actually go back and then start gathering the previous documentations. Next slide, please. And now I would like to explain a little bit about the Lagos example. Concerning the Lagos example, digitization and management is a key thing that has been achieved in Lagos because the process and then some other things have been digitalized. There is the existing base map, and essentially there is cooperation between different agencies, speaking to partnership as part of the goals that we're looking at from the framework of effective land administration, shared data access, data accessibility. But however, there is a fear or there is a problem of accessibility. Now, the data can be available, but the question is who is able to interact with the system. For example, I could interact with the Edo State GIS platform and then say 25% has been registered, but then in the Lagos example, the case is not the same. Then the surveying and geospatial infrastructure, of course, has been significantly improved, but there lies certain challenges still. One of the challenges is the bureaucratic bottlenecks that is within the whole process. And then the problem of affordability that the system tends to create. Obviously, Lagos State is the economic headquarters of Nigeria, so to say, and then the challenge is that the cost of things are on a normal basis very, very high, and that significantly speaks to land administration also. You could want to get documents and then talk in terms of millions, when in certain places, outside of Lagos, you could have maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands, you're done with that. Then I'll share a little example about the Ekiti State example.
Sorry, Israel, 1 minute more, okay? No more than 1 minute, please.
Okay, next slide. I will keep the Ekiti State example. Thank you. I will skip the Ekiti State example, and I will just say that the Ekiti State example is in its early stages. There had been certain implementations before now, but then some things are being done gradually now. Now let's go to my next slide, which is, I think, the most important of them. Next slide, please. Now, if you look at the FELA progress across states in Nigeria, you will see certain states highlighted against some of the FELA requirements or FELA goals. Now, this is not saying that there are no other states that have been able to improve their own systems. I'm talking about the previous slide now, that have been able to improve their systems beyond what I have here, or at least to create some list of certain states that have been able to improve. But unfortunately, if you look at affordability and then the national engagement and communication enhanced, those two things remain absent. Now to the key challenges. The key challenges includes lack of effective coordination among key stakeholders in the Nigerian space. And for this, it's recommended to have better coordination. And somehow the National Lands Commission is beginning to work towards something like this. There is a proposal for an establishment of a National Lands Commission to look into things like this. Then we have the failure of recognition beyond statutory rights of occupancy. This is key because we need to be able to recognize the continuum of land rights, and then digitization of existing cadastral data, the implicit challenge of sporadic against systematic land titling. This is very, very vital for people to switch from the sporadic method to the systematic method, because states that have implemented things like this are those who actually embrace the systematic land titling when they started. Then the last of them is the need to embrace the fit-for-purpose principles for flexible land administration and management. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that FELA implementation pathways link with the broader geospatial tools, and it ensures efficient use of resources. Now, finally, I'd like to acknowledge all of these persons who have given me a word or given me access to their data to have this presentation. Thank you so much.
thank you, Israel, so much. It was a very amazing presentation. When I really that you were able. I don't know how you did it, but in 10 minutes you tried to present all the things, and also something that I really appreciate is that you also present the challenge that you were living, you were having, or in this process, as well as recommendations. I think that you highlight some issues like having the existing information starting from zero, or in order to having that, recognize that, and add it to the FELA process is great. So we really appreciate, Israel, for your time and your presentation. Thank you so much. And now, ahora de Nigeria nos
From
volvemos a las
Nigeria,
Américas,
we go
vamos
back to the
a México
Americas.
y
Let's
vamos
go
a
to
presentar
Mexico.
a otro Mario,
And
Mario
now we will
Cruz, que es
introduce another
ingeniero en
Mario, Mario
sistemas
Cruz,
computacionales con
engineering computer
especialización en
systems with
programación y magíster en
specializations in
gestión de datos
programming and a
espaciales
master's in
por el Centro de
geospatial data
Investigación Jorge
management with the
Tamaño y
Center Jorge
actualmente
Tamaño,
cursa el magíster
and now
interdisciplinario
is
en
doing
ciudades
a
sostenibles
master's
en la
in
Universidad
sustainable cities
Autónoma,
from the
de San Luis
Autonomous
Potosí.
University of
Ha
San
ocupado
Luis
diversos
Potosí.
cargos en
Has used
INEGI
different roles in
y
INEGI,
incluyendo, por
and
ejemplo, el director de
including, for
Geografía
example,
y Medio
Director of
Ambiente en la
Geography and
Oficina
Environment in
Regional
the
Centro
regional
Norte
office of
y
the
jefe
North
del
Center,
Departamento de Métodos y
and
Procesos
Chief of
Digitales de
Methods
Cartografía
Department,
Rural.
Digital
En lo
Processes
que
and
refiere al
Rural
ámbito
Cartography.
académico,
In
fue el
regards to the
coordinador del
academic
área de aplicaciones
aspects, I was
tecnológicas
coordinator
y
of
desarrollos de sistemas en el
technological
Centro
development
Barry
system
Kim.
and technologies.
Desde marzo del 2024
From
se
March
desempeña como subdirector
2024,
general de la información
Sub
geográfica
General
para la
Director
Administración
for
del
the
Territorio
Geographic
en la
Information
Dirección General de Geografía y Medio
and the
Ambiente en
General
INEGI. Y
Direction
Mario
from
nos va a
INEGI.
comentar, nos va a compartir
Mario
la
will
presentación sobre el
share the
estado de la actividad
presentation
catastral
about
en
the
México,
status of
una
cadastral information
perspectiva
in
desde los
Mexico, a
principios
perspective
básicos de
from
FELA.
the main
Muchas
principles of
gracias, Mario,
FELA.
por
Thank
sumarte
you,
a esta
Mario, for
propuesta y
joining
te
this
damos la palabra.
proposal, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rosario. And before all,
Reconocimiento a
just
todas
I
las
wanted to
personas que han hecho
congratulate and
posible
acknowledge everyone
este
that's
evento. Sin duda
made
creo que es
this
una
event
gran iniciativa que
possible. I
permite
think it's a great initiative
intercambiar
that
opiniones,
allows
buenas
to
prácticas y
exchange
demás, ¿no? En
opinions,
beneficio
good
de ese
practices,
proyecto tan relevante. Por
and
el otro lado,
benefit
también
these
agradecemos el
relevant
espacio
projects. On the other hand,
para
we'd like to
compartir esta
take the
experiencia. Como
space
ya
to
se
share
mencionó,
this
yo represento a
experience.
INEGI,
I
que es la
represent
Oficina de
I represent
Estadística y
INEGI,
Geografía en México. Y yo creo que una
and I
precisión
think
importante pues es qué rol
an
juega
important thing to
precisamente
mention is
esta
the
oficina
role that
en el
this
contexto
office
del
takes in the
webinar, ¿no?
context of the
Pero
webinar.
bueno, además de la función
So
primordial que
beside
tiene
the
que ver con
main
la creación
function
de
that has to
información
do with the
estadística,
creation of
el
statistical
INEGI también por mandato legal
information,
en
the
México tiene
INEGI
otro rol
has
importante que
other
tiene que ver
role
con la coordinación de
that
las
has to
unidades
do
del
with the
Estado que
coordination of the
tienen
state
actividades
units
ya sea de generación o de
that
uso
have
de la
activities of
información
creation or
geográfica, ¿no? Para
use of
diferentes temáticas,
statistic
por supuesto
geographic
integrado
information.
territorial. Y precisamente uno de los tantos proyectos que
And one of
realiza
the
es
many
conocido como los
projects
censos nacionales de gobierno.
that it
Estos
does
censos
is
nacionales en
the
los estados se realizan
govern
cada año y como
national
parte de la información
census
que se
that
capta,
these
pues
are
hay un
made
módulo de
yearly,
catastro, registro público de
and
la
there's
propiedad
a
y del
model
territorio.
of
Entonces, el
public
mensaje que queremos
register of property.
transmitir aquí, más allá
And
de
what we
algunos
want to
ejemplos
project
que vamos a
here, the
mostrar en el
message that we want to
transcurso
give,
de la
beside the
presentación, es
examples that we're going to give,
precisamente cómo podemos
is
promover el
how
uso
can
de
we
esa
promote the
información que
use of
generan estas
this
oficinas
information that
en el
these offices
aprovechamiento y sobre todo en
create,
este caso en la medición del
and
grado de
above
avance,
all,
¿no? y de
in the
desarrollo, en este caso de
measurement
las
of the
estrategias de FELA.
level of
Ya
advancement
sabemos, ¿no?
and the
Todos aquellos que no
strategies of
tenemos
FELA. We know that
un mecanismo adecuado de medición, pues
everyone that
difícilmente podemos
doesn't
establecer en
have
qué parte
an
del camino estamos
appropriate level
parando. La siguiente, por favor.
of measurement, we don't know where we're standing, okay?
Bueno,
So next,
algunas
please.
consideraciones, yo no voy a
Some
ahondar en el tema de
consideration
FELA, creo que ya quienes me
in the
antecedieron han
topic of FELA.
explicado
I think
con todo
the ones
detalle en qué
that were
consiste,
before me
solamente
already
destacamos
explained
aquí
what
lo
it's about,
correspondiente
so
al papel que
we
juega
will
FELA como
highlight
una guía
the
internacional de las Naciones
role
Unidas para
that it
modernizar
has
los
that
sistemas de
can be
administración del territorio, ¿no? Entonces con eso nos quedamos. Y la
a
otra
way
aclaración
to
clave, y bueno, pues también hay que decir
modernize
que en
the system of
México no ha
administration of the land.
implementado, al menos
And we're not
oficialmente,
staying with
FELA. Es
this.
decir, no hay un pronunciamiento en el
Another
hecho de que FELA ya está
thing
implementado,
important that
pero precisamente
FELA
este
has in
ejercicio
Mexico,
que nosotros les
there
queremos compartir
is this
es
exercise that we want to
enfocado
share,
precisamente en cómo
which is
podemos aprovechar
focused on
estos
how can
datos
we take advantage
precisamente en
of
la
this data
generación de algunos
in the
indicadores para
creation of
medir el grado
some
de avance que
indicators
tenemos,
to
¿no?
measure the
En
level
tema
of
del
advance
análisis,
of
bueno, pues este
progress.
análisis combina
So this
tanto las
analysis
secciones de catastro y
combines
registro público de la propiedad, como ya lo comentaba,
sections
que
of
se captan en los
public
censos
register
nacionales de
and
gobierno que se hacen.
cadastre
En
of
este caso,
property, as I was
haremos
mentioned,
referencia a datos que
and
fueron publicados en el
we'll make reference on data that was mentioned in 2024 and 2023. Next one. please.
bueno, hablando precisamente de cómo aprovechar esta
Speaking about
información,
how to take
pues
advantage
en
of
la
this
primera,
information,
la anterior, por favor.
previous slide, please.
Precisamente en la primera, la
And
anterior, por favor. La primera que tiene que ver, la
the
primera vía
first one,
estratégica es gobernanza y
the third
obviamente
strategic
todas son
pathway is
importantes, pero al final
governance,
de
and all of
cuentas
them are
creo
important,
que
but
es donde finalmente se puede fortalecer el
this is
proyecto, ¿no? Yo creo
where
que en la medida que se
the
establezcan
governance
esos
can be
convenios y esos
strengthened.
acuerdos de colaboración, pues yo
In
creo que las
as we
posibilidades aumentan
establish
de manera
these
significativa, ¿no?
agreements of
Definitivamente algunos
collaboration, I
datos
think
que abonan
the
precisamente
governance
al tema de la
increases.
buena
So
gobernanza.
here we
En el mapa
take some
podemos ver, por
topics that
ejemplo,
have to do
aquellos
with good
estados de
governance,
México que ya tienen o
especially in those
cuentan con
states
un
of Mexico
instituto
that
unificado.
does not
¿Qué quiere
have
decir?
that do not
El
have a
Instituto de
unified
Registro
institute,
Catastral y Registral
an
ya está
institute in which
unificada, lo
the
cual obviamente,
cadastral
primero,
function and
pues da
register is
cuenta precisamente
unified.
del resultado de esos convenios de colaboración y
And it shows
segundo,
the
que
result of
supervisan
these
precisamente cada uno de los
agreements
procesos, ¿no? Otros
and
datos
makes
relevantes,
the
por
processes more
ejemplo, 30
efficient.
unidades de 32 que existen en México, pues tuvieron
30
consejos estatales para la
entities
planeación
had
participativa,
a
que como sabemos
state
también es una de las
councils for the
herramientas importantes en el esquema de
participative
gobernanza.
planning.
Hablando de municipios, bueno, pues al día de
Speaking
hoy
about
tenemos en México
municipalities, we have
2.478, ¿no? En
more than
este caso, por
2,000
ejemplo, de los
municipalities.
municipios, 1.147 gestionan su
And of
catastro
those,
catastro, 978
1,147
lo hacen por medio
manage
del
their
registro estatal.
cadastre
Y el foco rojo lo tenemos aquí como
themselves,
en estos
and
lugares que precisamente,
978
pues
do
tenemos
through
345
state
municipios en los
cadastre.
cuales
You
no
have
existe la
345
función catastral como
municipalities
tal, ¿no?
without a
Entonces, como
cadastre
conclusión,
function. So
pues
in
bueno, la gestión
conclusion,
catastral a nivel municipal
the
de México es muy
cadastre
diversa. También,
management is very diverse in
coincidentemente, como se ha
Mexico.
hablado precisamente en
And
casos
as we have
anteriores,
said
el
before
número
in
de
previous
municipios es
cases, the
significativo
number
de
of
aquellos que no tienen una
municipalities
actividad catastral como
is
tal y por lo tanto, pues es una de las
which
áreas de
don't have a
oportunidad
cadastral
que debemos
information
atender,
is
¿no? La siguiente.
important. So next one.
Siguiente diapositiva, por favor. En la vía estratégica que
In
tiene
the
que ver con
strategic
política y
pathway
legal,
that
pues
has to do
obviamente
with
también el marco legal es muy
politics
importante.
and law,
Todo aquello
it's
que no
also
está
very
sustentado
important.
en un marco legal,
Everything
pues
that
este
is
tiene una
not
mayor complicación para
sustained
poder
in a
avanzar.
legal
En este
framework,
sentido,
it's harder
pues diríamos
to
que, por ejemplo,
progress.
todas las entidades o todos los
So
estados, en el caso de
all of
México, cuentan
the
con una legislación
states in
catastral,
Mexico
¿no? Sin
have
embargo,
a
las áreas de oportunidad
cadastral
están
law.
precisamente en que esos instrumentos no
So,
todos
but
están
the areas
actualizados, como se
of
muestra el lado
opportunity
izquierdo
is
para la
precisely
parte
because
catastral. Y
these
también
instruments
que
are
algunos de
not
ellos no existe el
updated,
reglamento, ¿no? Que sabemos
and
que el
there are
reglamento pues,
no
es, digamos, el instrumento complementario de una ley en el cual se
rules,
especifican las acciones
which is
concretas a
a
realizar. Del
complementary
lado
for
derecho
law.
tenemos la parte de registro, donde, pues bueno, vemos ahí,
There's
digamos,
another
un
part of the
avance un
log
poquito más
where we
significativo,
see
el
a
porcentaje de
significant
aplicación, en este caso, de los
progress, the
ordenamientos
percentage
en
of
la parte,
application
catastral,
and the
pues
ordinances
digamos
in
que
the
no es
cadastral
el
part.
óptimo, sin
Well, we
embargo,
see it's
tenemos ahí
not
un avance
optimal, but we
significativo, ¿no?
have
Entonces,
significant progress.
aquí concluimos que el dinamismo
So here
legislativo
we
revela dos
conclude that
realidades, mientras que el catastro
the
muestra un
legal
estancamiento normativo.
dynamics
Por otro
shows, well,
lado,
a
esto
cadastre
pues
has a
obviamente frena
normative
precisamente su modernización.
staggering
Adelante.
and it stops
La
its
siguiente, por favor.
modernization. Following slide.
En el tema de las finanzas, pues
In
obviamente
regards to
sabemos
finances,
que uno de las
we know
primeras o
that
uno de
one
los
of the
objetivos relevantes en este caso
relevant
de
goals
ambas
in this case
instituciones, de la
for
parte
both
catastral y
institution and the
registral,
cadastre
pues es
and
la captación,
log,
¿no? La
it's
captación del
capture
recurso y en este caso lo que
of
vemos aquí, pues
resources.
también hay grandes
And what we
temas
see
que
here, where
resolver.
there's a lot of
Sí,
topics
en
to
la parte
solve.
catastral, por
In the
ejemplo,
cadastral
si
part,
hacemos un
for example,
comparativo
if
entre el valor
we do a
catastral y el valor
comparison between
comercial, pues
cadastral
vemos
and
que hay una
commercial
brecha
values, we
significativa,
see there's
¿no?
a
Y esa brecha
significant gap,
significativa
and
pues
this
tiene
significant
diferentes,
gap
digamos, orígenes, ¿no? Uno de ellos es
has different
precisamente la falta de
origins. One of
actualización
them is
en
the
el tema
lack
del
of
catastro y
updates
rezagos
in the
precisamente en la
cadastre
valorización del suelo, por ejemplo.
and,
Y
for
del lado derecho
example,
podemos ver que
valorization
la
of
parte del
land.
registro, pues ahí
And
vemos pues
in the
un
part of
avance
the
un
log,
poquito
for example, what we see a
significativo,
progress
¿no?
that's
El registro se
more
consolida como una
significant
fuente de
is
ingresos robusta y de
consolidated
gran
as
mayor
a
orden
robust
y en
source.
términos,
There's higher
digamos, ya de
order. And
captación, que es
now,
lo
in
que
regards
uno de los
to
aspectos que
capture,
primordiales
it's one of
precisamente de
the
ambas
main
actividades,
aspects that
pues vemos, por ejemplo, ahí
for
un crecimiento de
those
ingresos de
activities we
registro en
see
el
a growth
2023
in
por ahí del
income of
6.5% con respecto al ejercicio
logs
anterior, ¿no? Y
6.5
ya
in regards to the
destacábamos,
previous
por ejemplo, hay
exercise.
11 estados que
And we
impulsan la
highlighted there's
modernización
11 states
conjunta
that
del
push
programa
for
de
modernization
modernización que
alongside with
vinculan
the
el
program
catastro
of
con el
modernization
registro.
that link
La
cadastre with
siguiente, por
the
favor.
log.
En el tema de los datos, bueno, también
In regards
tenemos
to
ahí
data,
algunos
we
avances,
also
¿no? Por
have some
ejemplo, vemos que
progress.
tenemos
we see that there's 39.5
Aquí yo creo que es muy
millimeters of
importante cuando
disaster.
hablamos de la parte de
when we talk about linkage, we need to have the data. And in cadastre, we think it's represented in cartography, previous information, which is important information with the linkage with the log. So we can say with the figures that we have, that both institutions handle massive amount of data, but the gap of the update of cadastral information is a critical point. So for us, we said it before, and especially in the municipal part, it's much more important because we're talking about 200 municipalities.
En la parte de la innovación, bueno, pues
In
aquí
regards to
también
innovation,
podemos
well,
resumir
here
que
we can
en ambos
summarize
casos
that in both
resultados de los
cases,
proyectos de
the
modernización que
result
se
of
ejecutan en México
modernization
desde hace
projects
varios
that are
años
executed
hay
in Mexico
esfuerzos.
from years back,
Solamente
there's
aquí yo
efforts.
destacaría, por ejemplo,
I
lo que
would
tiene
just
que ver con
highlight
el tema
what has to do
de los
with
sistemas de gestión, ¿no? Creo
the
que los
management
sistemas de gestión
systems.
como
I think the
instrumentos de
management systems
modernización son
as tool for
importantes. Y
modernizations
aquí
are
vemos que,
important
por ejemplo, en el
tools.
caso del registro
And
estamos
here,
al
in the case
100%,
of
es decir,
logs, we're
todas
still at
las oficinas de
100%.
registro tienen un
All
sistema de
offices,
gestión y
logs
en
have
el
a
catastro estamos, digamos,
management system,
cercanos
and
a
in
ese
cadastre,
100%,
we're
¿no?
close
Lo
to that
demás, bueno,
100%.
son
The
tecnologías
rest, or
alternativas
the
que se utilizan de
alternative
manera, pues, digamos, diversa en
technologies that
cada
are
una de las oficinas
used
de
in
catastro.
each
La
of the
siguiente.
cadastre offices.
Y bueno, en el tema de normas y estándares, como
In
ya lo
regards to
mencionaba,
norms
creo
and
que nosotros
standards, as
aquí
I
en México
mentioned, I
contamos
think
con, digamos, una
in
base
Mexico
sólida,
we
una base
have a
importante
solid
que tampoco
baseline.
podemos decir que sea exhaustiva y que sea suficiente. Sin embargo, vemos
Might not
también
be
aquí que,
exhaustive,
bueno,
but
tanto
enough.
la
But
parte
even though we
de, digamos,
see
tanto
that
catastro visto del
the
lado del registro, siempre
cadastre seen
tenemos
from
ese
the
rezago,
logs,
¿no?
we always
Entonces,
have
7 de
that
32 registros y 8 de 31
staggering.
catastros, hablando de
So
las
there's
oficinas
a total
estatales, han
of
implementado la cédula única catastral y
they've
registral, que
implemented
como ustedes saben
the
también, pues es uno de los instrumentos importantes
unique
que nos ayudan y que
ID
evidencia
for
no solamente
cadastres,
la modernización precisamente de
and
ambas
not only
oficinas,
for
sino que son
modernization of
un
both
instrumento
offices,
de
but
vinculación de
there's
ellas,
also a
¿no? La
linkage tool
siguiente,
for
ya
this.
me voy a ir un poquito más rapidito para llegar a la parte nada más de las
I'll go faster
conclusiones.
to reach conclusions.
Adelante, la parte de las alianzas, bueno, como yo les decía,
In
bueno,
regards
creo
to
que más
alliance, as
allá de
well
los
as I
datos que
said,
vemos aquí,
more than the data we see
precisamente la
here,
vinculación de ambas oficinas es
linkage
una
of both
evidencia. La
offices,
otra que yo
it's
les
an
diría es
evidence.
que en ese rol
The other
coordinador que
thing I
tiene el
would say is the
INEGI,
coordinating
pues yo
role
creo
that
que hay
INEGI
mesas de
has.
trabajo que son los
There are
comités
working
técnicos
boards, what are
especializados en los
technical
cuales
specialized committees in which
convergen todas las oficinas relacionadas con la
all
gestión del
offices
territorio y
converge
por
in
supuesto
regards
está la cabeza de
to
sector con la
territory.
cual
We had the
tenemos
head
una
of the sector
comunicación muy
where we
directa
have
y
direct
que son
communication
usuarios
with,
directos
and
precisamente de
they're
la
direct
información que
users
estamos
of the
presentando, ¿no? La
information that
siguiente.
we're presenting.
Ya esas creo que nos las vamos a pasar muy rapidito.
I think we will go over this very
Capacidad y
fast.
educación, bueno, pues también
Capacity
hay
and
esfuerzos,
education.
obviamente
Well,
la
there are
parte del
efforts
desarrollo de
made in
capacidades
regards to the
es
development of
primordial,
capacities.
la
It's
promoción
key,
y
promotional
concientización,
and
también hay
awareness
avances,
creation.
pero yo solamente
There are
quisiera cerrar
progress
ya
too,
en la
but
última
I would
diapositiva,
wrap up
adelante por
in the
favor,
last
la que
slide,
tiene que ver con el
next
cierre,
one, that has to do with
y
closure.
reiterarles la siguiente por favor.
Next one.
Aquí, bueno, y básicamente
Here.
entonces como conclusión,
Basically,
¿qué diríamos?
as a
Bueno, que en
conclusion,
México
what would we
contamos con
say
una
that in
base
Mexico
robusta
we
para la
have
modernización
robust progress for
apoyada en
modernization
modelos
supported
nacionales
by
como el
national
modelo
models,
integral de registro
like the
público de la propiedad
integrated
y el correspondiente al
public
catastro. Estos son
registry
modelos que se
model
han venido
and
implementando desde hace ya
the
varios años.
one
Al
to
día
the
de hoy
cadastre.
están en
These are models that
ejecución
have
y
been
entonces digamos que es un camino
implemented for many
adecuado
years. I
para
think
los fines
they're on the right
precisamente
path
de
for
la
the
implementación del FELA, ¿no?
means of
¿Qué
implementation
fortalezas
of FELA.
identificamos? Pues un marco
What
legal
strengths
que
do we
define
find? A
competencias
legal
y fomente
framework that
colaboración,
defines competencies of
adoptación casi
performance
total de
collaboration,
sistemas de gestión y alta
adoption of
tecnificación de
the
expedientes,
management
programas de
systems,
modernización catastral y
programs for
registral con
modernization,
apoyo de recursos
cadastres,
federales,
and logs
pero
for with
también
federal
tenemos grandes
resources. But
desafíos,
as well,
¿no?
we have
Y
huge
uno, pues, es
challenges.
precisamente
And
poder
one of
lograr
them
una
is being able to
interoperabilidad efectiva,
reach
pasar
effective
de la base legal a la
interoperability
vinculación real y
going from the
profunda entre
legal
catastro y
baseline
registro,
to the real
homogeneizar y
linkage,
estandarizar, en este caso
standardizing.
lo que estamos,
In this
hacia
case,
donde estamos caminando, pues es
where
superar
we're
la
heading
diversidad de
to is
procesos
to
y la baja
overcome diversity of
adopción de normas
processes and
técnicas.
low
Dicho de otra
adoption of
manera,
technical
tenemos
norms.
que seguir
Having said this,
promoviendo
we need to
y
promote
fortaleciendo precisamente la
and
aplicación de las
strengthen
normas técnicas
the
vigentes
application of
y la
technical norms
sostenibilidad
that are
financiera,
current
¿no?
and
En
financial
este caso,
sustainability. In this
afianzar la
case, we
eficiencia del registro
need
público de la propiedad
to
y
conclude
mejorar la evaluación
efficiency
catastral para asegurar los
and
recursos necesarios
improve
para una modernización continua.
valorization.
Entonces,
in cadastre. So the takeaway is how to take advantage of the information that institutions like INEGI create to be able to measure the level of progress in the implementation of FELA, and this is the message that we want to live here. Thank you very much.
Excelente, Mario. Muchísimas gracias por
Excellent,
traernos y
Mario. Thank you
contarnos
for
de tu
bringing and
realidad o las
telling us
realidades
from
de
your
México.
reality
Me
or the
agradeció
Mexican
también además
reality.
toda la
I
presentación,
also
por supuesto,
think
por unos puntos importantes
that,
que
well, there were
por ahí no lo
some
veníamos
important points.
mencionando, que era el vínculo del catastro
There
con el
was a
registro
linkage
de la
for the
propiedad
cadastre with
y
the
esa
log of
sinergia y
properties
esos
and
desafíos
that
que eso
synergy
propone
and those
y los grados de
challenges
actualización. Así que buenísimo
and
porque
the levels of
aportaste otra
updates.
mirada
Thank you because you
complementaria de las
contributed with a
que veníamos
supplementary
conversando.
perspective
Muchas
to
gracias,
which
Mario,
what we were mentioning.
por la
Thank you, Mario,
presentación.
for
Y
the
ahora, bueno, nos
presentation.
volvemos a
And
Nigeria,
now we
y
go back
África, y ahora vamos a
to
Sierra Leona.
Africa, and now we
Vamos a
go to
presentar a
Sierra
Jobo
Leone,
Samba,
and
que él es
now
asesor
we
de tierras del
introduce
proyecto de
Shobo
administración de tierras de Sierra
Samba,
Leona, con más de 15 años de
with
experiencia
more
en
than
gestión de
15
recursos
years of
naturales,
experience in
perdón, en zonas
resource
rurales y
management,
urbanas.
a land
Ha sido clave en el
advisor,
desarrollo de la
has
política
been
nacional de
key in the
tierras, así
development
como la
of
creación de
public
marcos
policies
legales
of
e
land use and the
institucionales
creation
para una
of
gobernanza
legal frameworks
tradicionales,
and institutional
para
framework
una gobernanza
for
responsable de la tierra,
a
promoviendo la
responsible
colaboración
land
entre el
governance,
gobierno, la sociedad
promoting
civil y los líderes
collaboration with
tradicionales. También
civil
lideró la
society
redacción de
and
leyes de
traditional
la Comisión
leaders.
Nacional de Tierras
Also
y de
helped
Derechos
in the
Consuetudinarios
reduction
en
of the commissions
2022
of land
y
use
continúa apoyando la reforma agraria mediante
and
la asesoría técnica,
continues
desarrollo
promotion
normativo y trabajo
of
con
the agrarian
comunidades.
reform.
Jobo nos va a presentar sobre los logros
Bobo will
claves
talk
en la
about the
implementación de los
key
principios de
achievements in the
FELA en Sierra
implementation of
Leona.
FELA principles
Jobo,
in
the
Sierra
floor
Leone.
is yours. Thank you for being with us. It's great to have you here. Are you there, Jobo?
I am here, and
Okay.
thank you. Thank you very much, Madam, for giving me the floor to give a brief synopsis of the progress we have made so far in Sierra Leone regarding the implementation of the various thematic areas of the framework, the FELA. Please permit me to quickly congratulate the new chair and co-chair, and also to inform them that let them be rest assured of the support from Sierra Leone as and when needed. So as I have said, I am Jobo Samba again. I work for the Ministry of Lands on the Sierra Leone Land Administration Project, which is a World Bank supported project. And my presentation is basically going to cover a brief summary of what progress we have made so far in the implementation of FELA. Next slide, please. So in the area of policy and legislative framework, in Sierra Leone, we started the development of a national land policy in 2009, and by 2015, we completed that process. The national land policy is mainly, in summary, it is to correct the mistakes we have made in the land sector in the past, and to set us on a very new journey that we can use to address a lot of the challenges we are having in the country, which include food security, climate change, so on and so forth. The national land policy has about 8 provisions, and one key provision is the review of legislations and legal framework to enhance decentralization of land functions in the country. So as a result of the implementation of the national land policy, the 2015 national land policy, in 2022, the government of Sierra Leone enacted 2 very important laws. One, the National Land Commission Act and the Customary Land Right Act. The process of implementation of those acts started in 2019, and we completed that in 2022. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So no, go to the next. Go back one step backwards, please. One step backwards. Okay. So we completed the development of the National Land Policy, the National Land Commission Act and Customary Land Right Act in in 2022. And essentially, the National Land Commission Act was to establish the Land Commission and decentralize land administration in the country to be effective and efficient. So it was going to decentralize land administration at district and community level, whilst the Customary Land Right Act provides and is supporting the protection of communities, the land rights of communities. To implement the National Land Commission Act and Customary Land Right Act, we developed, in 2023, we developed the regulations for the two acts. The regulations are providing guidelines for the various provisions in the two acts. And in addition to that, to be able to smoothly implement the two acts, we needed to develop 5 new laws. And we have developed draft of those laws. The laws we are looking at is the Land Title Registration Act. A draft of that is now available, and it is with the Ministry of Justice, which is to be enacted in the next few months. The Land Title Registration Act is going to enable Sierra Leone to move away from the registration of instruments to the registration of land rights and the land ownership. And we also have the Draft Land Adjudication Act, which is going to promote the systematic registration of land rights and ownership across the country. We also are reviewing the old Survey Act, which was developed in 1950. We are doing a new Survey Act. The idea is to streamline survey practices and introduce innovative fit-for-purpose approaches in surveying and mapping of land across the country. Basically, the new Survey Act is going to introducing the use of para-surveyors in surveying in communities. And we are also doing State Land and Public Land Act. The State Land Act, the idea is to outline the processes and procedures for the acquisition and management of state land, whilst the Public Land Act is to strengthen the processes and procedures on how government can acquire land for developmental purposes. As I have said, these are now with the Ministry of Justice, and we envision that this will be passed very soon for smooth implementation. Next slide, please. Next slide. So in terms of financial and funding, the development of the land policy in 2019, finances came from and technical support came from UNDP. And so at this point, I also want to pause a moment and say thanks to all of the institutions and development partners that have been supporting us in this journey. We want to say thanks to the World Bank and FAO and the CSOs who have been working with government of Sierra Leone on this journey. And part of the success story includes the implementation of the voluntary guidelines in Sierra Leone in 2014, which was supported technically by the German government and by FAO, and the seed money came in from the German government. This was a $3 million project that was shared between 3 countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and 1 country in Asia. That resources was also used to finalize the national land policy in 2015, which has been considered as one of the best policy on the African continent, and it is complete. It was informed by the principles of the voluntary guidelines. In 2022, the development of the Customary Land Right Act and the National Land Commission Act was supported by the government of Sierra Leone and FAO. And then in 2018 and 2019, we piloted the protection of customary land rights, which is one of the key provisions of the National Land Policy. And that was supported technically by FAO, and we received some amount of money from the Irish government, and then some seed money also from the UN Peace Building Funds. Next slide, please. Next slide. So in terms of data, this is exactly the situation in Sierra Leone. So in 2018, we utilized a fit for purpose approach, which was supported by FAO to do some community land right mapping, in which we collected data on 11,000 acres of family land across 4 chiefdoms. That included 60 land parcels. And we also implemented the same in 2019. We scaled that up. And then under the World Bank project, which aims to establish an efficient and accessible land administration system in Sierra Leone, we did a study that estimated that the land records we currently have in country is about 60,000 land parcels, and maps are estimated to be about 10,000. And our next step is we are scaling up data collection across the country, which is under the World Bank project, which will involve mapping of community land and bringing that into a land information system database. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Hobo, 1 minute, 1 more minute, okay?
Okay, so in terms of innovation, we have installed courses across the country. We are developing land management information system. We are digitizing land records, and we have established community structures for land management. Next slide. So in terms of standards, these are the standards we have established. Some have been already established and some are on the way. Next slide. In terms of partnership, we have partnership between development partners, CSOs and MDAs, and we have partnership with traditional leaders, and we have, so next slide. Capacity building, a lot of capacity building work have been done. We have long-term training, on-the-job training, institutional and long-term training, which is being implemented under the current land administration World Bank supported project. Next. Advocacy, these are some of the work we have done in terms of awareness raising, both at national and community level. Next. Governance, we are establishing the Land Commission. It's going to be established decentralized at district level and at chiefdom level. Next. I thank you very much for your attention. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think that you let us know about what is going on, and especially it was so clear when you identify per each of the strategic guide, how are you working in each of them in order to show. So it was really nice to be able, and in a way, to standardize the presentation to be able to share with all of us. So thank you so much, Jobo, for this presentation. And to all the countries, agradezco a todos los países que presentaron las diferentes propuestas, alternativas e instancias
and narratives and instances in which we're progressing in this moment in regards to FELA. And now we will go to the last session, which talks about the following steps. So we will listen to some words from Paula Dijkstra, our dear friend.
For being with us, we really appreciate, and I'm so happy that you will be being co-chair in this group. So thank you, Paula, for this. So the floor is yours, Paula.
Thank you, Rosario, and for handing over. And nice to see you also in this regard. We meet often in the FIG community, but sometimes also in UNGJM community, and that will be more frequent from now on. Can you go one slide back? And then I will skip this slide. But thanks for all the speakers. Thanks for all the speakers for sharing your stories and also to see the different phases of development. And it really shows the added value of FELA. And what inspires me really is to see this translation from policy of creating a framework and then seeing it into practice. So yeah, really well done in preparing this webinar to see the different perspectives. And it's really encouraging to move ahead and to talk about also the next steps and to have more clear vision of where we need to go. And what I noticed is at least already more engagement with different types of stakeholders. So I'm looking forward to the road ahead. What I want to address with this presentation, and I will try to keep it brief, is it's clear that there's a global land administration gap. The SDG report also shows that. It's this graph where you can see that documentation is really lacking behind, and that's something that we have to put effort on. And to divide this gap, we need to address this gap. So in the coming session in New York, the 15th session, we have a proposal submitted on a virtual hub for land administration. So if you can go to the next slide, Rafaela, with the 3 colored blocks. Yes, this one. Thank you. So this, with the proposal of this hub, is to support countries and institutions to accelerate implementation of the frameworks like FELA and also LADM, VGDT, etc. So they can really make a larger step ahead in achieving 10-year security for all, and that we can achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And the aim is that this hub will focus on knowledge exchange, capacity building, and technical support. And that's also where all of you as participants can also contribute to. So I will make a call for action to contribute to that today, but also in the coming time ahead. Next slide, please. So with this hub, we would like to focus on tailored support to help countries to implement, so really operationalize these existing frameworks, to facilitate knowledge exchange and also collaboration. And I think today has been a really inspiring example. Also focus on developing sustainable systems that can incrementally improve over time, and that are to ensure that these are also interoperable, allowing the land administration information to be integrated with other data sets as well. And that we also work in this together with governments, institutions, private sector, academia, and the NGOs. So having really a diamond approach with all the different stakeholders, and also to do that in collaboration and partnerships. The FIG has been mentioned, World Bank has been mentioned, GLTN is on board here, and there's really an opportunity to engage all these different stakeholders and to continue this dialogue together. Next slide, please. So for the 15th session, a proposal has been submitted, and this is a proposal written by 4 partners globally, and in cooperation also with the expert group that is hosting this meeting. And we already have the confirmation from different organizations like World Bank and FIG that they are willing to contribute to a work plan. So in New York, in a few weeks' time, we would like to get endorsement from all the member states to make a work plan for this global hub on land administration. And the next slide shows you what we need from you. Maybe you do not have the opportunity to be in New York, but there will be a national delegate taking part in New York. So we ask the national delegation to support the initiative, to provide feedback on the concept note, to share the view on the next steps and also the willingness to contribute to a work plan. So on the right-hand side, you see the different ways that you can express your voice. So share your comments in the chat on this ID, inform your national delegate about this agenda item, or reach out to Rafaela and me to share your ideas and thoughts. I really want to stress that your voice really matters. It's something that we need all voices from our community. So if you have ideas, write them down and send them to us. And on the next slide, I will give you some suggestions that you can inform your national delegation about on where it will be addressed during the 15th session at UNGGIM. There will be an element in agenda item 5 and also an element in agenda item 12. The slides will become available, so I will stop here and then you can find these details, and also via the link in the slides you can access these documents. And then I have a final slide to thank you. And also we have a task ahead that's also recognized at the UN. We have 5 years to achieve the 2030 agenda. There's lots of work that needs to be done. And as Antonio Gutierrez said, there is a need to shift into overdrive. Today I really felt the momentum that there's really encouragement throughout the different stakeholders and from the different examples that we can make a change. So looking forward to that, to work on that together with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula, for not only for your kind presentation as always, but also to make the awareness to everybody to be sure that the voice can be heard. That is very important for our community, UNGGM, and the same as well as FIG. So it's important also to enhance or to highlight that we can also make, it's important to have the support for the creation of this hub. So this initiative is very important to be able to talk to each of the member states representative that will be participating in the meeting in New York. And from the point of view of the academia, please let me know, as the chair of the academic network of UNGGA in Americas, any initiatives regarding this point. We will be supporting also this initiative. So thank you, Paula, for sharing this, and thank you so much. And now Amalia, Amalia Velasco iba a ser nuestra última presentación. Amalia se está intentando comunicar contigo, Rafaela, y te ha enviado
Rafaela has sent you some emails because of the issue in regards to timing and the interpretation. Sadly, we will not have enough time to do your presentation this time around. But we do have the excuse to, well, first of all, asking you to forgive us, and we have the door open for the following steps in the initiative to do more webinars, strengthening. Well, maybe we could stop sharing screen, Rafaela.
Y no sé si quieren maybe turn on the cameras to all of us to say goodbye. Y si pueden prender las cámaras como para que todos estemos en la pantalla, así que pedirle disculpas a Amalia, invitarlos a ella y a todos para la próxima
inviting you and all to the next activity that we will hold. There will be a report of presentation for the report of this activity, which is a supplementary from the Americas with collaboration with EuroSDI and the team of Americas has been collaborating with the adaptation inclusion of the survey that we will hold in the Americas from FELA. We also took the initiative of reaching the professionals with a challenge that we have to take as our own, and that all of us are working, supporting ourselves under coordination. So We simply want to thank everyone. Particularly, I'd like to thank Rafaela, that's there. Rafaela, thank you, and the whole team for moving this proposal forward and the challenge in the coordination of time zone. Sorry once again to Amelia for this inconvenience, but we're almost out of time. So thank you. And it'll be for next time. Do you want to add something? I just want to thank everyone for participating. I think it was a great experience of knowing how we're working with FELA in other countries. And sorry, Amelia, we'll do another webinar so you could tell us all that you have to teach us. So thank you, everyone, and we'll stay in touch.
Bye. Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Bye bye.
Gracias. Gracias a todos los participantes que
Saludos
nos
a
mantuvimos
todos.
Thank you.
más de
Bye bye.
90 todo
Bye
el
bye.
tiempo.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Saludos.
Bye.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.